Because it's the weekend, I like keeping topics sort of lighthearted. And yesterday, I did my weekly Ask Me Anything day. I'm not going to always do it on the same day. I like to mix it up so that people don't know when to expect it, so that we can kind of keep it, um, you know, pretty, pretty, pretty random. But I do have a topic for today, a topic that I should have done last week, but I completely forgot. So I'm going to do it today. We're going to do Superman Day. Yes, Superman Day. Superman Day is actually on June 12th, according to DC Comics. Um, I completely forgot about Superman Day. I knew it was coming up because I saw it in my Google Photos thing, like as a reminder from the last time I had posted the um, the the photo of for Superman Day, because I had copied and pasted last time when Superman Day happened, so that I could keep it in my Google Photos when I wanted to either use it as a wallpaper or something else. So I knew the day was coming up, but I completely forgot. And it was, but it was the day of Superman Day when I had saved it. So since I forgot, I'm going to do it now and talk about it. Um, but yeah, it was June 12th. June 12th was Superman Day. The weird thing was, on the Superman Facebook page, it wasn't even mentioned. You would have thought, of all places where it would be mentioned on their Facebook or Instagram page. But instead, they just kind of like posted something. They were just posting stuff about the new Superman TV series on Adult Swim on Cartoon Network, um, which is more like an anime version of Superman. But I don't like the new spin on it, because it's like they're trying to make Superman too much like Goku in this new anime series. But I mean, for those who might like it, I mean, some people might like it because they might like the new spin they take on Superman. But for me, I like the original. I like his original origin story. This changes his origin story a lot in that series, so I don't want to spoil it for people who might be interested in checking out that series. It's on the second season now, and I watched the entire first season. I don't like it. Um, Lois Lane is now Korean. um, and we know James is little Jimmy is has been black since they changed it on the CW. So they stuck with that. I don't care about that. I don't even really care. I don't even care about Lois Lane being Korean now, or half Korean, whatever. But I do care that they changed his origin story. Like, if it's not the Superman origin story, to me, it's just not Superman. And so I don't really watch the Superman series on Adult Swim. But in any case, um, to today I'm gonna just let's just talk about Superman. We can talk about superheroes in general, but I want to talk about Superman since I missed it on June the 12th, which was Superman Day. And like I said, shame on DC Comics for not even mentioning it on the Facebook page. They didn't mention it on the DC Facebook page, the DC Comics Facebook page, and they didn't mention it on the Superman Facebook page. But they did mention Father's Day. I'm like, so you mentioned Father's Day in a new TV series, but not Superman Day itself, which is like his day. So, yeah, guys. So let's. This topic today is Superman. For those who don't know, if you clicked on the link, I mean, if you clicked on the live stream, you would have saw the title says Superman Day and all of that. So I really don't want to hear excuses about, oh, I didn't know what the topic was, because you literally see it on, like, you see it before you click on it. It says belated Superman Day. Um, so, and of course, trolls will be banned. If I see something stupid, I'm not going to even mention you. I'm just going to silently ban you, because I think trolls are mentally ill idiots. And that includes children too, because most trolls are children. But fuck those little retarded bastards too, because I don't care. Like, when I was a child, I had better things to do than troll people. And my friend and I both agreed on that yesterday. He said he said I shouldn't be soft on kids who are trolls because they're just as stupid as the adults, because they should have 1,000 other better things to do than to come online on someone's live stream and troll. So fuck those little retarded bastards who should have been slurped up by their moms. Happy Father's Day. But yeah, so it is Father's Day, but I'm not going to talk about Father's Day. But shout out to all the fathers out there who, who are proud fathers. My father and I don't have have a horrible relationship, so that's why I'm not talking about Father's Day. Plus, again, I miss Superman Day. Superman is way more important to me than my father is. So there it is. So we're gonna talk about Superman Day. Liam says my birthday is June 12th. That's what's up. Secretly, is your name Kal-El? um, uh, Athia Channel says hi, bro. What's up, Athia? I don't get some of the emojis that some people use because YouTube has its own emojis, and sometimes I don't get the emotion that those emojis are expressing. I get the ones where it's just a yellow face, and I don't mean yellow face in a racist way. I mean the yellow emoji faces. So, in any case, Superman Day. So June 12th. I'm not sure why June 12th was the day. I think that might have been the day that the first Action Comics #1 was really. It was either, I think June 12th was either the day that Action Comics #1 was released or Superman Comics #1 was released. But the first appearance of Superman was in Action Comics #1 in 1938 under National Public. I think National Publications Comics. That was the forerunner of DC Comics, was National Publications. And again, he didn't have his own. He didn't. The comic wasn't originally named after him. It was named Action Comics, just like Batman first appeared in Detective Comics. But that was different because Batman appeared in Detective Comics number 37. All the issues before then, and even in DC 37, had a bunch of other vigilante heroes in it, but none of them were considered superheroes. Batman was made to be a superhero and rival to the success of Action Comics Superman, because at the time they weren't owned by the same company. Later on they were, but in any case, so Superman was actually the very first superhero. It wasn't the first comic book, and it wasn't the first action hero like in comic books, but he was the first superhero. On Life says, was I in the military? Yes. I'm just wearing this. I'm not in the military now. I just wear a lot of these green wick t-shirts because they're comfortable to wear and to work out in. So, do you guys have any favorite superheroes? Do some of you like Superman? I know Superman for a lot of people is not everyone's cup of tea, which is a shame because some people say he's unrelatable, or that he's too much of a Boy Scout, or he's too American, all these sorts of things. But he is the first superhero, and I mean, so there was going to be a lot of trial and error with that, and he kind of reflected the values at that time in 1938. His two creators were these these Jewish guys from Ohio. They grew up lower middle class, and Superman's origin story is sort of like a parable of the Moses story. So he and again, if we're going to stick strictly to this topic, because yesterday I had a day where you could ask any random questions. So again, if it's not about Superman, I'm not going to answer it. Not answering any questions, not dealing with Superman or superheroes. Go somewhere else. Again, I do a day every week where I have ask me anything day, and then people want to come in on other days when I have a specific topic that I want to discuss with folks, and they want to change the discussion. So not today, if you please. But if people do want to ask me questions or advice outside of the given topic, they can drop a Cash App. The link is in my description on my YouTube channel. If people want to ask a question, like something is really burning that they need to ask, or they want to, kind of change the discussion to something to which they are more interested, that is fine. Just drop a Cash App. But other than that, we're only talking about Superman Day. So, in any case, so like I said, I know Superman's not everyone's cup of tea. His motto was truth, justice, and the American way. They recently dropped the American way part. It's just now truth and justice. I'm fine with it either way. But I actually like the superhero. He's not my favorite, to be sure. I mean, anyone who's watched a significant amount of my content knows my favorite superhero is Batman, and have seen some of my Batman toys and collectibles all over my little man cave, including like the pillow I'm on right now. But yeah, but yeah, even though Superman's not my favorite superhero, he's definitely within my top five. Like my top is Batman, Wolverine, Spider-Man, and then after that, I would say arguably Superman and Captain America. Those would be in my top five. After that is like Daredevil and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. So those are my favorites overall. With I guess an honorable mention to the Incredible Hulk. For those, and yes, he is a superhero. A lot of people don't think so, but he doesn't kill civilians. Like, unless we're talking about like a evil version of the Hulk. But the regular version of the Hulk is a considerate person. So he is a superhero. Just very maligned and misunderstood one. But getting back to Superman, so some people think he's unrelatable because he acts too perfect. Mind you, he is an alien who is meant to represent the best of mankind. Okay, so and on top of that, DC superheroes as opposed to Marvel superheroes have always been like aspirational, godlike superheroes, something that are inspirational for kids and even adults. Like, they inspire you to be greater than what you are. That was how DC superheroes were, whereas Marvel superheroes were meant to be relatable, which is why during during the Silver Ages, or I would say more, not really the Silver Ages, more so the Bronze Age of comics. You had the whole era of Marvel realism under Stan Lee and Jack Kirby, because they wanted their superheroes to be relatable to folks, which is cool too. I love my Marvel superheroes, probably even more so than DC, but they're two different. Traditionally, even though that's kind of broken down now, traditionally that was the difference. There was, the DC comics world, where it was more of an idolized sort of world, whereas Marvel was a grittier world. Like, superheroes in DC didn't worry about paying their bills like Peter Parker did, and in Spider-Man. Like, how would he pay his bills and take care of his auntie? But again, Spider-Man is like one of my favorite superheroes as well. He's in my top 3. Thor J says humans are the real Supermans. We endure so much shit and lie and still keep going. Yeah, I mean, Superman, like I said, was a representation of the best of mankind. So it's funny that people always say he's unrelatable when he's just reflecting the best parts of humanity. And yes, they call him a Boy Scout, but again, he he was always meant to be represent the best of what we can be. That was Superman. He's a reflection of the best aspects of us, and that makes him a great superhero in my mind. Also, later on they came up with sort of a backstory of why he seems to be so perfect, which is so in that retconning of Superman's sort of ethos, the explanation behind the Superman ethos is that he kind of keeps himself in check because he's always worried that if he were to, get if he was to step out of line, lose control, or get out of pocket, like he could unintentionally just utterly destroy a lot of people. I mean, he, depending on what type of Superman we're talking about, like pre-crisis Superman, for instance, I mean, he could wipe out an entire solar system if he, wanted. But that's not who he is, as a person. So that's sort of like the retconning of the Superman ethos, is that, he's always like this well behaved person because he's afraid that, if he were to just be out of control even for a moment, like it could end up in utter just utter destruction and mayhem. So in that case, that does make him relatable. Like a lot of people are that way in their jobs, like in certain professions, like you don't have the comfort of showing your frustration and stuff like that because literally there are lives on the lines in your profession. Like when you talk about law enforcement, if you're talking about military, if you're talking about certain government jobs, or people who craft certain things for like aircraft and all sorts of things, like it does make him a little bit more relatable. But again, even without that retconning of his ethos, I still think that the whole thing about him being unrelatable because of him being so perfect or whatever isn't a bad thing, because like I said, he's meant to inspire us and actually reflect the best of what humankind is. Same thing with Batman. Like sometimes people say he's unbelievable because of all the things that he can do. And similar to Superman, he's meant to sort of reflect like the 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 peak of human perfection. Like, what if you could be the smartest in all these sorts of things? What if you could be the most talented in these different athletic skills and such and so forth? Like I said, that's why DC heroes have always meant to be like aspirational type figures. I'm not a father, Ozzy, but I appreciate the gesture. Bob says, the older I get, my switch to Marvel. Their movies suck though. So yeah, I mean, we can separate the comics from the movies. Actually, in Marvel, you really can't as much anymore because Kevin Feige took over the comic books too now. And what you see now is that he's trying to corral the Marvel comics around the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So honestly, they're not as good anymore. Like maybe if you take an individual hero out of Marvel, then they'll still be good. Like I'll still read an occasional Spider-Man comic, or maybe even Wolverine. Well, I haven't bought anything Wolverine since the old man Logan run, but like I didn't buy the Death of Wolverine run when they killed him and then eventually brought him back. And now that they brought him back, he has like some new skills. Like he can heat up his bone. He can heat up his bone claws, which I don't know why he needed to do that now. But yeah, I didn't. The Death of Wolverine probably would have been a decent comic book mini series to read, but I've only read recently like some new Spider-Man comics, right? But if you take an individual comic from Marvel Comics, it might still be good. But the whole collection now is, I don't like it. Like I said, I don't want anything that Kevin Feige touches anymore, because he's gonna put his little his little DEI spin on everything. He's trying to retrofit Marvel Comics to the way things are in the MCU, and the reason, and people kind of like the difference in Marvel Comics than from Marvel Comics. I mean, than from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The only I think what people have been enjoying with Marvel recently is that they brought back the Marvel's Ultimate Universe. So they brought that was a run back in like 20 years ago. They had the Marvels, the Ultimate Marvels, where it was like all your classic Marvel heroes, but with like a different story, like same origin stories, but a whole bunch of weird stuff was going on in the Ultimate Universe. And when they first did the Marvel Cinematic Universe, if you notice, I don't know if you read that stuff, like a lot of the way the superheroes were in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and at least in Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the MCU, was more similar to their depiction in the Ultimate Universe in the comics than to their classic 616 universe counterparts. But I don't even enjoy Marvel Comics anymore, because, like I said, Kevin Feige is running it. Like, maybe the Ultimates storyline will be better, but I don't trust anything going on in the 616 universe, which is the 616 universe is the canon continuity. Feige sucks. Like, no one needs that DEI shit. Like, I'm sorry. I don't know what Laura says. I don't know who Laura is referring to as he sends his love, but okay. Nick Klein says Superman gets so much hate because they don't want people to idolize him or to try to be anything like him. Superman's the truth. He's the GOAT. Yes, he is the GOAT. He's definitely the GOAT. Like I said, it's a lot of hate towards him. One, because he's white, because he's considered unrelatable, because he tries to be a perfect person. Mind you, he is an alien in a human world. So that's a part of his ethos, is like he's trying to be, you know, he's trying to fit in. But I mean, none of that, you get none of that from the old golden age and silver age era of comics about him trying to relate to being an alien in a human world. For the most part, it just sees him as a human, and he's an alien as an afterthought in those comics, especially in the golden age. Like, he's almost not even acknowledged as being non-human in the golden age era of comic books. And he was kind of rough and gruff. I've read Superman #1 and Action Comics #1. I have like them in my collection, not the original copies, of course. They're facsimile replicas, which make the comic just as they were made back then, but they don't have the value of those original comics, obviously, since they weren't published. Then these are facsimile reprints. But I'm reading those original stories, and he was a little rough and gruff back then. He would beat up people. He didn't have his powers he has now, but he would beat up people. He would talk kind of, talk a little tough talk to people. Same thing with Batman. Batman killed people in this original comics, and he carried a gun. He was not the same guy that we later, most of our characterizations of these of these superheroes come from the Silver Age era, not from the Golden Age. The Golden Age versions of them, they were a little more rough hewn. But as we came to know them better in the Silver Age and the Bronze Age, and then in now the modern age of comics, which to me I think is actually ended back. I should say the modern age of comics really kind of ended in the '90s to me. But in any case, he we know him now as this guy. He won't kill, similar to Batman. Wonder Woman's known to kill on an occasion or two, but even usually she doesn't. But we know him. He doesn't kill. He kind of always holds back his powers. He's very friendly and affable. So much so that sometimes villains don't understand. Like not even super villains, just regular criminals will sometimes not realize how powerful this man is. That he's basically a living god. Because he's so nice, but they'll be afraid of Batman, who will whisper in their ear, I will completely destroy you. And they'll be instantly afraid. Like, Superman will sometimes let Batman come in and do his dirty work to intimidate people, because that's not really Superman's approach, is intimidating people. So, like I said, there's only 3 comic heroes people really care about: Superman, Batman, Spider-Man. So yeah, by popularity, it would be Batman, Spider-Man, and then Superman. Those are the 3 most popular heroes. That doesn't mean there's the only ones people really care about. If you go to comic book conventions, you'll see people loving all sorts of superheroes. They like the second and third stringers too. That's just the one. Those are just the 3 superheroes that non comic book fans like. But for comic book fans, for most comic book fans, even those 3 are in their top 3, obviously. But you're going to see more of a wider variation of favorite of comic book heroes amongst people who actually read comics. For some people, they don't even read DC or Marvel. They prefer stuff from Image Comics, Dark Horse. Especially the Image is definitely big, or some of the other ones. But because like some people don't like some people don't like the traditional superheroes, which is DC and Marvel, because DC and Marvel both own the term superhero. So comic books outside of DC and Marvel can't legally use the term superhero for their comics. So Bonnie says, I remember going to see Superman with Christopher Reeve. The newer version is doing too much. So yeah, so we're gonna see how James Gunn does his revamping of Superman. He said that he wants to bring it back to the old Superman, where he's like a goody two shoes. But the difference is, so like, like Zack Snyder didn't understand superheroes, and despite what he talks about in his interviews, he's basically just an edgelord. Like he literally said, well, everyone says Batman doesn't kill, so I'm gonna make a movie where I want to see what happens when Batman kills. I'm like, so you're just an edgelord. And he's like pretty much said the same thing for Superman. Everyone says Superman don't kill, but what about we put him in a world where he has to kill someone? That no, like, if you know if you know the ethos of Batman, and you know the ethos. I mean, if you know the ethos of Batman, you know the ethos of Superman. You know that there are always options for them not to kill. He doesn't get that because he doesn't get superheroes. Like, he likes the Watchmen, but the Watchmen weren't superheroes. They were like just superpowered people, imperfect superpowered people in a corrupt world, and they never tried to be like better than what they were. So yeah, he can make a movie about Watchmen, which still isn't a great movie, by the way, but that's okay. But he confused thinking that the Justice League and was comparable to the Watchmen. The Watchmen were supposed to show a degradation of superheroes, because the very comic book writer who created them meant to show them as not being the good guys, which you would let him, which you would think that would put him on notice to say, hey, when I actually do the superheroes, they can't be like the Watchmen. But instead he wants to be an edgelord and give us an emo Superman. Like, who wants to see an emo Superman? Like, I love Henry Cavill, and he looks the part and plays the part of Superman well, but the way they had him act out Superman was a travesty to the character. Like, Superman was never emo, and he didn't, and he saved people not just because it was like his it was just something for him to do. Like, he believed in humanity. Like, you don't see this come across in the Zack Snyder films. So yeah, they're horrible. Like I said, I loved Henry Cavill as Superman, but I hated how they had him play the character. It was horrible. Like, he was an emo Superman. You have the guy who every other hero looks to for hope being moody and brooding. Like, that's Batman. Batman is moody and brooding. Superman is not supposed to be moody and brooding. It was a travesty. And having him kill General Zod, like, yes, that did once happen in a Superman comic book, but that wasn't part of the canon. That wasn't part of the canon continuity. Just because he killed someone in like another offshoot of the comics doesn't mean that happened in the canon continuity and should be repeated on as part of the new movies. And you look at the old 80s movie, Christopher Reeve, he looks, he acts, he sounds like Superman. Like, if you close your eyes and you picture Superman for people, I guess, over the age of 30, you picture you picture Christopher Reeve. You just picture Christopher Reeves. And like, I was a baby, like I was just born, at the time that the first Superman came out, so I saw it, later on video. But I did go to the movies to see Superman 3 and 4, and they were both horrible. 3 was the one with Richard Pryor, and Richard Pryor was the bad guy. It was just a horrible, campy movie. But it was only good because it was only worth watching because, again, Christopher Reeve was playing the character. Same thing with Superman 4, which is even worse. They said Superman 4 killed the franchise, which it really did. I saw that in the movies. That was horrible. But again, just because Christopher Reeve was in it, I went to, as a kid, I wanted to see it. I wanted to see Christopher Reeve's Superman because he looked like Superman as a kid to me. You couldn't tell me that wasn't Superman. But that movie was horrible. It was. It's not literally 3 and 4 aren't even watchable to me today. I couldn't watch it. Like, you couldn't pay me to watch that. Maybe 3, you could pay me to watch 3, but you couldn't pay me to watch part 4. That's just torture. But hopefully James Gunn does a better job. Like I said, he wants to show the old Superman as he is, being a goody two shoes, and showing how people see him as unrelatable in our world, to show that he acts that way despite being in an imperfect world. So I guess if you took Christopher Reeve and put him in the Zack Snyder universe, I think that's what James Gunn is going for. And that should be interesting because he said he wants to show how our image of Superman would actually work in a grittier, cynical world. That might be an interesting take, so I'm willing to give it the benefit of the doubt. But if James Gunn mucks that up, I'm done with the DC universe, DC cinematic universe. Nick Klein says Man of Steel was amazing, but I like the OG Superman movies too. I didn't like Man of Steel, Nick. I tried to. I just didn't. Like, making his father tell him not to save him to prove a point that, people wouldn't be ready for a superhero. That was so fucking dumb. I'm sorry. That was stupid as shit. And I love Kevin Costner. And he played a great Pa Kent, except for that, telling him not to use his superpowers. Like, that was not part of his mythos. They did not tell him to suppress his powers. and to sit there and literally tell him not to save him in a situation where he can easily save him, just to prove the point that if he went to save him, people would see him as this weirdo, and not be able to trust him. Like, that was just dumb. I'm sorry. I know that Zack Snyder thought it was deep, but Zack Snyder probably took like one fucking philosophy class and thought he was like smart. Like, to me, Zack Snyder is just Michael Bay who pretends to be Christopher Nolan. That's my that's that's how I see Zack Snyder. Zack Snyder is Michael Bay who thinks he's Christopher Nolan. He's not a good director. His movies fucking suck. You can see that with that little whack ass uh that whack ass Timu version of Star Wars he put on Netflix last year. It was actually it was actually supposed to be a Star Wars movie, but Lucasfilm rejected it, so then he made it and got Netflix on board with it, and it's basically just a Star Wars wannabe, but it's stupid. He's not creative. He, he's not that great of a director. Like I said, he fancies himself a Christopher Nolan, but he's more like a Michael Bay who took like one philosophy class. So I'm not a father, Anthony Culpepper, but thank you for the sentiment. I'm not a father, guys. Laura J says feels like you're a father. Um, Maybe just because I'm like kind of um, what's the word for it? Didactic. I think that's the word, which is just a fancy way of saying someone who's like teachy. Bonnie says maybe develop new superheroes to get new audiences. So yeah, that's what they're doing. So some of them do that, but the problem is a lot of them, a lot of these publications are lazy, and instead of trying to create new heroes to bring in new audiences the way they did with like Miles Morales. People love Miles Morales. Some people love the new Miss Marvel, some don't. But they did try to do that back in 2012 when Marvel did the reboot called All New, All Different Marvel, but it didn't go well. Like, DC is better at rebooting their comic books than Marvel is. When Marvel reboots their comic books, it's just not as, they just don't do a good job of it. When DC reboots, they do a good job. Like, there's a lot of antipathy towards the New 52 that came out in 2011 when they rebooted it, the DC Comics multiverse. But that first year of the New 52 was a pretty good success. Um, and people loved the new take on Batman during the New 52 run. But you know, the New 52 had its controversies, but it was still way more successful than the following year when Marvel did the all new, all different Marvel. Like, the best things to come out of that, like I said, was like Miles Morales when they brought him out of the Ultimates Marvel universe and brought him into the 616 universe. That did well because the reason was he wasn't just this Mary Sue character. He had his own personality. He wasn't just a black version of Peter Parker. Like, he was a completely unique character in his own in his own in his own skin. Um, Even the new Miss Marvel, I liked her. A lot of people didn't like her, but I liked her. Um, but all the most people didn't like the all new, all different Marvel because they created a bunch of new superheroes who were just like derivatives of the legacy characters. Like I said, Miles Morales escaped that just because he was so unique. He didn't feel like just a diversity figure. Like, he didn't seem like he was just made for the sake of diversity. Like, he was a genuinely likable character, and you couldn't say it about many of these other characters like Ironheart, who's like this perfect black female who's the smartest person in the world, who takes over for Tony Stark. No one likes her, and no one liked her in the Black Panther sequel, and no, and that's why they keep trying to. They finished her series 2 years ago, by the way, but Disney Plus keeps pushing it back because they don't know how to market it. because they probably know that they got a piece of shit on their hands. um, but yeah, a lot of those all new, all different folks were not great characters because they were just derivatives of legacy characters. Then they even made some characters during Pride Month back years ago. It did not go well. I'll just say that. So let me get back to the comments. Ashish Kumar says, "Bro, do you like India?" Well, I've never been there, Ashish. Yeah, I'm not mentioning anything that doesn't have to do with superheroes, guys. And we're not talking about Superman or superheroes. I'm not mentioning it. We're sticking to my topic that I chose, that you saw when you clicked on the live stream that said Belated Superman Day. It's June 12th. If we're not talking about that, I'm not going to mention what you're saying in the stream. You had yesterday when I had picked, when I said give, random random question day. You can talk about anything you like. And none of you knuckleheads show up on when I pick the random, when I say here today's topic is you can ask me anything, regardless of the topic. None of you knuckleheads show up for that, but then you always want to show up when I have a given topic for the day. So I'm not going to even acknowledge what you're saying if it has nothing to do with Superman Day. I'm not talking about it. I don't care. If you want to derail the conversation to something that has nothing to do with Superman Day, drop a cash app. Otherwise, because I'm doing this for free, you're not going to take up my time with something you want to talk about just because you got some word vomit on that you feel like spilling. I don't care. I'm not I'm not getting paid to do this. So unless you are dropping a cash app, I'm not going to mention what you're talking about unless it is about this topic. Period. Full stop. She says Superman versus Batman. That's always a a interesting little debate. I mean, obviously Superman would destroy Batman, but you're talking about like just the world's strongest man. I mean, the strongest superhero on the earth. He's not the strongest character in the DC multiverse, but he is the strongest superhero on the earth, right? And there can be, I know there's going to be some debate about that. Strictly within the DC multiverse, within Earth One, or depending on, it can be sometimes called Prime Earth, Earth One, or New Earth, whatever. The canon universe within the DC multiverse, Superman is the strongest hero on Earth. Likewise, Superman is the second smartest person on Earth. He didn't always used to be considered the second smartest. He was always within the top 10 though, but there were people considered smarter than him. But after, like, I think Jeff Johns or some other folks did their run of Batman, they considered him the second smartest person in the world, with Lex Luthor always being the smartest person, which is kind of a reverse of what Marvel did. And in Marvel, the smartest man on Earth is, of course, um, Reed Richards, and the second smartest is his arch villain, Doctor Doom. So, but in DC, it's the reverse. The super villain is the smartest, which makes sense because his arch villain is Superman, the strongest person. So, the strongest person on Earth versus the smartest person on Earth makes it an interesting dynamic. But yeah, Batman's considered the second smartest. So it's like he obviously he knows he can't outfight Superman. He has to outthink him. And by the way, he does keep a sliver of kryptonite in his utility belt, which was actually given to him by Superman in case he ever goes rogue. He trusted that Batman would do the right thing and put him down, whereas he knows Batman is that cutthroat. He will make the difficult choices that other people couldn't. But they have actually an incredible respect for each other, and are actually friends. in most versions of the storyline. The only one where you don't really see them getting along was the dark and gritty Frank Miller version that came out of the Dark Knight Returns. And you had Dark Knight Returns, then Dark Knight Strikes Again, then the Dark Knight Part 3, all by Frank Miller, which is like a kind of a cynical take on Batman, after he comes out of retirement or whatever. But outside of the Frank Miller version, in most versions they are friends and have a huge respect for each other and for their different ways of achieving justice, because that's something they both believe in. As far as whom takes out whom, is just basically comes down to what the writer of the story wants. Like, if the writer of the story wants Superman to win, Superman's gonna win. If the writer of the story wants Batman to win, Batman will win. So Bonnie says the young children not talk to like the older version of Superman. Yeah, most people do. When you say the older version, you talking about from the movies, the Christopher Reeves, or you talking about the older version from the comic books? Because I'm guessing you mean the Christopher Reeves version. Because I mean, if you look at him, he just looks like Superman. Like, if he was walking around, like, you would literally think that is Clark Kent. Like, he looks like the embodiment of a superhero in real life. Like, he would just walk around and you'd be like, that dude looks like Superman. Like, that's how much Christopher Reeves looks like him. Even when he had his horrible accident, when he got bucked off the horse and was paraplegic for the rest of his life before he died, he still looked like Superman. Like, he just looked like Superman, in a wheelchair, but he still looked like Superman. She says, hey. Brian on said, hey, how you been? Doing well. Paradox on says, hey, Spider-Man, where are you from? She says, are you from Louisiana? No, I don't have a bit of a Louisiana accent. Just being kind of random. Brian said, so Brian, your favorite superhero is Iron Man? And I guess you mean Tony Stark Iron Man too as well. All right, some people are just gonna get timed out. Jay says, who we talking about? This is Superman Day. Again, I don't know how you guys are clueless about what we're talking about when it's literally in the title when you click on the live stream. You're just being, you're being disingenuous. You saw the title of the topic when you clicked on the live stream. Sneedle says, these comic stories don't come out of thin air. The stories have real backgrounds in our world history. Sometimes. But other times, these guys are very creative writers. Like, some people downplay just how good some of these writers are. Some of these writers, would have went on to write maybe science fiction novels. Actually, some of them have. Some of them, would be screenwriters, and again, some of them have been screenwriters. But these are very creative people in the comic book industry. They don't get their due credit, except by the fans who actually go out and meet them at comic book conventions and stuff. But these are very creative people. This is why comic books make such great movies, because the comic book industry is the only place where you've had original stories coming from. Like, without the comic book movies of the last 12 years, Hollywood would have been in a rut, because there's not much new coming out of Hollywood nowadays. Like, now they're kind of reverting back to Hollywood without the inclusion of all the comic book movies, because it's been inundated with that, and it's been so many comic book movies that now they're becoming just mediocre movies for a bunch of reasons. But from I guess from 2008 and on with the MCU, and then with some of the with the MCU and with the Dark Knight trilogy, and then the beginning of the Snyderverse. Like, Hollywood was filled with comic book movies because that was where some of the most original stuff was coming from. They are inspired by real world events sometimes. Like I said, some of them are inspired by their own personal background. Um, Even the anti superhero stuff, like you have anti superhero stuff like The Boys. The writer of The Boys, Garth Ennis, was someone who doesn't like superheroes, so he wrote a comic book about what if the superheroes were the bad guys. I mean, which is not unique because The Watchmen did that back in the 80s. Like, The Watchmen was like one of the greatest graphic novels ever. That and Dark Knight Returns are considered like the two greatest graphic novels ever. But aside from, Watchmen, like Garth Ennis, like he made a comic book about the superheroes being evil. So um, it's a lot of uniqueness. And by the way, guys, the new season of The Boys is out. It came out last Thursday. It's pretty good so far. I will warn you, don't let your children watch this. Don't let your children watch The Boys if you never watched that before. It is some of the content could be rated X. I'll say that much. I mean, if you don't know, like, Prime Video likes to kind of push things as far as they can with some of their movies. Like, I mean, with some of their TV shows like Fallout, Invincible, and The Boys. Like, they try to be as they try to push as much shock value as they can without it being like pornographic. So um don't let your kids watch The Boys, but it is a great show for people who already are familiar with a lot of the superhero tropes, to see all of those superhero tropes be reversed. Homelander being like an evil Superman, sort of like a quasi evil Superman, evil Captain America type thing. But I don't give too much about The Boys if you haven't seen it. But you should definitely check it out on Prime Video. Maybe you should get get the free 30-day trial for Amazon Prime just so you can watch The Boys. So Fallout as well. It's pretty good. I never played a video game, but I like I like the series. Lord's Justice said there actually are canon events where Batman kills, but he exhausted all other options. Not in the canon universe. All the versions there definitely are storylines where he's killed, but those aren't canon. Like I said, the whole Golden Age, he was killing in his first run, and that's why they invented Robin, to make him relatable to little kids. They was like, well, we need something so he can relate to little kids, because this guy's like a hard-nosed detective vigilante who's like killing bad guys and stuff. So they literally made Robin to make him more relatable to little kids. But in Robin's very first appearance, because I have that comic book too, in Robin's very first appearance, he's killing people too. I'm like, God damn, they got Robin killing people, like they're on a construction site, and he literally like flips and kicks people off the off the high beam, and then Batman comes in and well, you can deal with me. I'm like, damn, like, seriously, like, this is a role model for Robin, who's like a little kid. Like, he's killing people, kicking them off off a construction beam, and Batman's coming in like, and I'm gonna kill you too. Like, or the original version, the closest thing you have to like a canon. Well, all right, so it's two storylines where it comes close to Batman killing someone in the canon universe. One was KG Beast, right? So if you remember KG Beast, they fought, I think, in a sewer system or something like that, and KG Beast was actually beating Superman. So Batman actually locked him up in some sort of storage room or something, and just left him there, with the implication that he was gonna eventually just die locked up in the storage room. But then but because again, Batman can't kill, they later changed the storyline to say that, I mean, they retconned the storyline to say that he eventually escaped from being locked up in that room where Batman left him. So there was that. And then another close call where he sort of killed was um, the not Death in the Family. He did want to kill Joker in Death in the Family because when he killed Jason Todd, and it took Superman to stop Batman from killing that man. And this is after he had after Joker had tried to wipe out the entire United Nations because he somehow became uh, a Middle East ambassador. You have to read the story, but in the storyline, not Death in the Family, but the a Killing Joke when he crippled Batgirl. In that storyline, in the very end of the story, he yoked up the Joker, and they both started laughing. But in the original storyline, he has killed the Joker, but then they later edited it, and he didn't actually kill him. But in the original version, the way the writer intended it, it was supposed to be the end of the Joker in the Batman story. So he was supposed to have killed Joker, but in a Killing Joke, but they changed it. So those would have been the two closest things. But in the canon universe, he is not killed. Maybe other versions with maybe other versions of Batman within the canon universe have killed, but he himself didn't. But those were the two closest that I remember. His run-in with KGBs when he locked him up and kept him like secured in some storage room or whatever it was, and didn't let him out, with the implication that KGBs just ended up dying in that room until they changed it later and said that he escaped. And then um, the thing with the Killing Joke where he originally killed Joker at the very end of the story, but it was just implied in the last comic book panel. But again, Joker didn't die in that storyline, but it's still, Another one is the Son and the Demon, like the his altercation with Ra's al Ghul, and they both ended up killing each other. Like Ra's killed Bruce, and Bruce killed Ra's. That's not considered canon. That actually, no, that wasn't Son of the Demon. That was one of the other Ra's storylines with Ra's al Ghul. Son of the Demon was just one of the three stories they were kind of cobbled together as one of the Elseworld stories of Batman. So again, that was considered like Son of the Demon, and the other stuff with Ra's al Ghul, that was considered like Elseworlds. It wasn't considered canon. By the way, I got on some Superman lo-fi music to be apropos to this this live stream. It's called The Most Peaceful Music You've Never Heard, #2. Soothing ambience for deep relaxation and stress. So I thought it was pretty good. But I want to get back to Superman, not just talking about Batman, even though Batman is my favorite character. But in the canon universe, he has not killed. Like, any of the storylines where he did kill are not considered canon anymore. Like KGB's, the original version of Killing Joke, that story with Ra's al Ghul where they both kill each other, or even the run with the Snyder run. When I say Snyder, guys, I'm not talking about Zack Snyder. It's a different Snyder, who did the New 52 comics. But when he did, where is it at? By the way, the first Elseworld story was a Batman story, which was called Gotham by Gaslight, which was like a steampunk version of Batman. So there was Death of the Family, which is not the same thing as Death in the Family, where the Joker is like, his face is surgically removed, so he wears his skin as a mask, his actual skin. But at the conclusion of that, it's called Endgame, and Batman does kill in that story in called Batman. Let me make sure. Yeah, Batman Endgame. And like I said, the new 52 run of Batman was written by Scott Snyder, who's not the same as Zack Snyder. In Endgame, he does kill, but that's not considered canon. Sorry if that long explanation. Small says emo Superman sounds sexy. No, it doesn't. Like he's just mopey. He's not like he's like being a mopey, uh, dour person. It's not good. Like when you watch Man of Steel and then Batman versus Superman, he's like I've never seen such a dour version of Superman. Small Small says yeah, Superman grew up a farm boy, not a band boy. Brian Arnold says Gunn is gonna make it woke. Uh, I don't know. I will see. Like I said, I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt because, in his own words, he did say that he wants to show a a so-called like goody two shoes Superman who's nevertheless um someone who has to interact with people in a cynical world. So it's like, so to me, it sounds like he wants to take Christopher Reeve and put him in the Zack Snyder universe. That's how it sounds to me. Now I'm not as confident with him as about Batman though, because he did say that he hated both the Christopher Nolan and the Tim Burton versions of Batman, and those are the most beloved versions of Batman on cinema was the Tim Burton 1989 film, The Batman with Michael Keaton, and then the Dark Knight trilogy, starring Christian Bale, made by Christopher Nolan. Those were the two most favorite versions of Batman, and James Gunn had once said on in Facebook that he hated both versions of Batman and thought they sucked. So I'm like, I don't know if he's gonna make a good version of Batman, but I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt of Superman, depending on how it goes next year once the trailer is released. If it looks if it looks promising enough, I might go see it in the theaters. Nick says, "What is your complaint about how Superman acted in Man of Steel? I thought it was great. Nothing wrong in my opinion." That's because you don't know the original Superman. That's not his. That's not his personality. He's not dour. He wouldn't have killed General Zod. He wouldn't have been. He wouldn't have sat there and just let his father die when he could have easily saved him just because his father said, people aren't ready for this yet. People aren't ready to see you with your superpowers yet. Just let me die." That's the dumbest shit ever. Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you thought that is anything like Superman as we know him from the comics or from the older movies. He's like, no, that was horrible. So it says, "You're a grown man analyzing something made for 8-year-old boys. Talk about grown man topics, dude. How about you suck my dick? Get off my fucking page." Anyway, Randy says, "Jesus loves you. He doesn't for..." Yeah, I don't care. Fuck Jesus. Gib American Trip says, "Do you know what part of Africa you're..." No. I don't. No, don't ask me fucking questions. Don't have fucking things to do with superheroes. Get the fuck off my channel. Nick says, "I don't know, it did actually make some sense in a way when he was like, no, don't save me, because as a father, he was just trying to protect his wife and his son and didn't want the government to come after them." It didn't, I'm sorry, I get the rationale, but it just doesn't make sense. It was, put it this way, Nick, if a more talented director did it, it might have made sense. But again, Zack Snyder is not a talented filmmaker. He fancies himself one, but he's not. Like I said earlier, he's just a Michael Bay who thinks himself a Christopher Nolan, but he's not. He's not that clever of a filmmaker. He may think that he is, but he's not. In the hands of a more capable director, like, I don't know, Ron Howard or Steven Spielberg, or you could name tons of people. I mean, even Christopher Nolan was originally tapped to make The Man of Steel, but he declined to make the movie because he then wanted it to be seen as part of his Dark Knight trilogy. He wanted that to stand alone from. He wanted the Dark Knight trilogy to be a standalone. He didn't want it to be blended into the greater movies that the DC Film Studios was making. So he still was an executive producer of Man of Steel, but he was not directing it or involved in it that much. Um, and like I said, in the hands of a better filmmaker, it would have made sense to show why Superman would have refused to save his father. They would have gave a better explanation. It would have been like Kevin Costner is a phenomenal actor. We know he's a phenomenal actor, so that's not even in question. And Henry Cavill is a great actor. That's not in question either, or shouldn't be. The question is the content can only be as great as the people making it. And Zack Snyder is not a great filmmaker. There's nothing there's nothing in his filmography that would make me say, "Oh, this guy is a great filmmaker." Nothing whatsoever. Between his zombies, between the Watchmen, between that knockoff Star Wars he made for Netflix, between those horrible DC comic movies he made, he sucks. And like I said, someone who had the intelligence of a Ron Howard or someone like that making this movie, it would have been believable why Superman would have held back his powers at a time when he could have easily have saved his father. But he didn't act like a Superman. He was dour. He let his father die. He killed the supervillain when he didn't have to. He was always mopey and emo. That's not Superman. Like, fine, if you want a superhero like that, that's fine, but don't call him Superman because that's not Superman. Superman literally is the one that everyone is aspired to for hope when all hope is lost. So Kendra says that's Cap. DC can't touch Marvel and storyline characters. That's subjective. I'm not. I didn't say that. I didn't say that DC was better than Marvel. That's never what I said. So if that's what you heard, you need to clean your ears out with what, because that's not what I didn't say. DC Comics were better than Marvel. I said I said they had different ambitions in those superheroes. DC superheroes were aspirational heroes, godlike aspirational heroes that that were for people to inspire people. I said whereas Marvel superheroes were made to be relatable to the average person. Like they had the concerns that most people have, like feeding themselves and getting a job and having money to pay the bills. That was part of Marvel realism. That wasn't something that most DC superheroes encountered. Those sorts of problems. They they lived a more the DC multiverse was more idyllic. I never said that one was better than the other. I love both. Nick Klein says, from Superman's dad perspective in Man of Steel, he just didn't want them to come after his wife, Superman's mom, to interrogate her and torture her to find out where Superman in all worst case scenarios. It still doesn't make sense. It doesn't. Like I said, and if a better director did it, it may have made sense, but it doesn't make sense. Pa Kent has never been in no version of Superman other than the Zack Snyder version was Pa Kent telling Superman, "Oh, don't show your superpowers. The government will come after you." That's stupid. And in a lot of versions, Pa Kent died by the time Superman was an adult anyway. Like, so there was no there. It just doesn't make sense. You can try to square the circle as much as you want, but that was never in the Superman mythos that Pa Kent was against him using his superpowers to prevent the government from coming after him and seeing him as a threat. That's not part of the DC story for Superman. What's your problem? Your mother won't suck my dick. That's why. Get off my fucking page. Schmuck. OBQ Kenobi says the beauty of Superman's story is that his problems can't be solved with his super strength. Yeah. F. Miskarkin says, I love this information. Thank you. OBQ Kenobi says, but always going to be Team Batman. Yeah, that's my favorite. Ashish Kumar says, do you like X-Men? Oh, of course. My favorite, that's one of my other favorite superheroes is Wolverine. I mean, I know that's the cliche character for everyone to like X-Men, but did I hide this dude on my channel? Thought I like I have no, you know, have no love for trolls on here. So you get out of pocket. I don't. If you get out of pocket, don't sit there and try to be nice afterwards because it's not like I'm gonna forget. I'm still gonna ban you off the channel. It's like you're not gonna sit there and talk slick and then try to play nice and think I'm just gonna let you stay on my stream. No, I'm gonna ban you. You're not paying me money. Like I said, you're not dropping any money in my fucking cash app. So I don't give a fuck about your feelings. And like my friend said, he said I should just start wearing a shirt when I live stream says fuck your feelings because that's the level I'm on. Not dropping money in the cash app. I don't want to hear zilch of what you're saying. You're going to say sassy, whatever, whatever. At the end of the day, I can fight. Where you're just a fucking troll. Riley Santhu says Breaking Bad, Godfather. I don't get it. Miss Skarkin says starting to fall asleep. Time for you to go, my friend. Don't stay up for me. I'm gonna be here. Same bat time, same bat channel. OBQ Kenobi says Superman could have saved his father. No one would have seen him do it. Right. You know he can literally go faster than the speed of light, right? So it just doesn't add up. Like whatever excuses people make, this guy has been able to go from the Earth to the very edge of the multiverse, which is called the source wall. The source wall is the very barrier that separates the multiverse from other aspects of reality. And he has been able to fly there, I think within like 8 minutes or something like that, to the very edge of the multiverse. So you're gonna tell me that he couldn't suddenly save that man without the general public becoming aware of it? No. Excuse me, guys. I'm about to sneeze. Give me a second. Oh, it's don't you hate that you're about to sneeze and then it stifles. Then it's gonna come out. Anyway, Vixter678 says, "What do you think of Injustice Superman?" I don't like him. I never liked the Injustice run. Like because at first it started off as the video game, and then from the video game they made the comic book off the video game, and then from that they actually made the animated film off of the comic book, which came off the video game. And I didn't like Injustice Superman. I didn't like the Injustice League. I didn't like Injustice Batman. I didn't like it. I didn't like the I didn't like the people who drew it. I didn't like how it was drawn. It looked goofy, and I didn't like the story that much. But I did watch the animated film for the Injustice part. I think like part 1 and part 2. Paul MP says, "Would you watch Batman?" All right. OBQ Kenobi says, "Not to mention he caught the Flash mid-run in the movies, but he couldn't grab someone before a tornado hit him." Right. It's just dumb. Rashmika King says, "Hey, bro." OBQ Kenobi says, "The animated film sucked. They should have kept it to the video game." Yeah, it did suck. But I was saying I watched the film just because I was curious about the Injustice story, but I was never into it beyond like I think I played the first version of the video game that came out. But yeah, the comic book sucked. DLA De Laurentiis, Fatine de Barre says TRN, so don't know what that means. Shuberjati says hello. What's up, Shuberjati? Shuberjati says, what is Superman Day? Superman Day is June 12th. It's the day where DC Comics, um, well, the folks who own DC Comics designed that to be the day to celebrate Superman. Just like Batman has a day. Usually Batman Day falls somewhere within like late September, early October. A few times it actually fell on my birthday, which is cool because it was like Batman Day, then it was my birthday, and then it was like Comic Con, Baltimore Comic Con. So like usually Baltimore Comic Con happens around the same time as around my birthday and around the same time as Batman Day. So when all three fall in line, it's a happy day for me because I can like go there and celebrate my birthday, got a little birthday money, and have some fun at Baltimore Comic Con. But Superman Day usually happens in the summer, so or like right before the summer, I should say. So June 12th. Um, but that's what it is. OBQ Kenobi says the animated movie wasn't like the video game. They messed it up. Well, yeah, they messed up a lot of the. I mean, the movies, a lot of those animated films came out. They changed a lot of storylines from a lot of stuff. Like Hush, they completely changed Hush, where Hush was supposed to be Thomas Elliot, who was like Bruce Wayne's best friend growing up as a child. They changed that in the movies to make Hush the Riddler. Like, I don't know why they did that, but they did a lot of changes within the animated films, and I'm not sure why. Rashmika King says, "Whoops, sorry, bro, that was a mistake. No problem." Shubriati says, "Damn, I'm a DC fan, but didn't know about that." Eric Guapo says, "Hello, what's up, Eric?" Shubriati says, "Since James Gunn took over DC, they screwed everything badly." I can't say it because he hasn't come out with anything yet. There hasn't we haven't seen any of James Gunn's DC films yet, so we don't know whether they're gonna be good or not. Like he's gonna do. He kept some people from the older movies, but all these new movies aren't gonna have any connection to the prior movies before James Gunn took over. OBQ Kenobi says, "I prefer the Elseworld stories in the animated universe. Gotham by Gaslight was pretty good. Um, what else was a good one? Elseworlds. I can't remember, but I do remember Gotham by Gaslight. I have the graphic novel here as well, because that was actually the very first Elseworld stories was Gotham by Gaslight. Red Sun. That was a good one. That was a good film, but I think they changed it. They changed it a little bit. It's not completely like the graphic novel. And All Star Superman is another good Elseworld story. They changed that a little bit from the book too. OBQ says Gotham by Gaslight and other Batman movie were good. Yeah, most of the DC AMU were pretty good. Like, and Justice League wasn't considered part of the DC AMU. Like, it was like outside of it. But most of the movies that fell within the DC AMU were pretty good. Now all the new films now that because the last movie in the DC animated movie universe was the Apocalypse War or whatever. That was the last one. Then all the movies since then have been under the Tomorrowverse um, headline. Like, and they're all like drawn the same and look the same. That's all the Tomorrowverse. I don't like any of those movies. Like, I don't like it. I don't like the way it's animated, and it just doesn't. They just don't. They just don't have the they don't have the good. I don't know, stories that the DC AMU had. Eric says, I think there are several reasons why they make changes to characters and stories. One is copyright conflicts they have with creators. If they make a change to a character, it's harder for creators. I mean, that's a good point. Schubert Jotti says Zach was still OP, even though his storyline wasn't that great. He made DCEU like proper dark theme. Huh? What do you mean he was still OP? Overpowered or original poster? I'm not sure what you mean by OP, but people didn't like Zach's. The people who like Zach has always been a niche crowd. Is not a lot of people just didn't like the whole let's make everything in a DC dark, because it was supposed to be like, all right, well, the MCU is like more lighthearted and brightly colored, so let's make everything dark and brooding for DC. And it wasn't good. To me, it was like he was just trying to make them look like the Watchmen, and the Watchmen wasn't that great. But at least the whole dark and brooding motif fit the Watchmen storyline. But it doesn't fit the DC superheroes, because DC superheroes were never known to be dark, brooding characters, except for Batman. Batman was the dark and brooding character because of his tragic storyline. But then they tried to make everyone have a tragic storyline. It just it just it just made a mockery of the Batman mythos. So I was never into it, and most people don't remember the Snyderverse very fondly. Eric says to get residuals from the characters. And I mean, that could be a part of it, but it's just filmmaking decisions sometimes. OBQ says Batman: The Doom That Came to Gotham was the second one. Yeah, Batman. Yeah. Eric says another reason is so DC can keep the trademark, because TM trademarks and copyrights have shelf lives and are constantly disputed over. Yeah, but you can extend those things like DC and Marvel both own own the um own the label superhero. So um and some things, like, they're not going to expire because they own them. It's not like they're leasing them. Like, they're their own creation, so they own them. That or their creators. So that's not the same thing. A lot of the times, the differences in the movies just come down to creative decisions. Like, they think that it would be better if instead of instead of such and such, let's do this that way. Like, it didn't really have anything to do with copyrights, trademarks, or the ownership of characters when it came to how they messed up the Hush movie. They just decided that they thought it'd be more relatable using an already established character as the Riddler to play Hush instead of a brand new character, which was Thomas Elliot. That's But yeah, sometimes it can be the original creators might, they might not want to pay them for the use of those characters in some of those movies. That does happen. But by and large, it's usually just a creative decision about what they think is most relatable to an audience who aren't hardcore comic book fans. So, Eric says Superman, Batman, Spider-Man are constantly in a battle with the creators' families over the rights of the characters. Sometimes, no, Superman is now, like, they always say, with the permission of the family of, I think, Joel Shuster or one of them. But they worked out that issue a while ago. Same thing with Batman. Like, they've given credit now to the guy who Bob Kane shut out of the process, Bill Finger. So now they say created by Bob Kane with Bill Finger, because Bill Finger gave us most of everything we know about Batman, other than the concept itself. The concept was created by Bob Kane, but his original concept was nothing like what ended up becoming Batman. All of that was created by Bill Finger, including his origins and Robin and Joker and Penguin. All were made by Bill Finger and some other writers. Bob Kane was a bit of an asshole, and Bill Finger died penniless after creating a $1 billion franchise. So, but DC has been since worked it out. Like, there's a whole documentary on it. Spider-Man, I mean, they had their issues, but that's been worked out a long time ago too, with the guy who created Spider-Man along with Stan Lee and Jack Kirby. But that guy always gets his due credit when they says created by such and such when it comes to Spider-Man. He was a guy who was like heavily into Ayn Rand and stuff like that. And just like Jack Kirby was mistreated by Marvel, so was he. Unfortunately, like um, Marvel back then was not very good to its artists and writers. But yes, Steve Ditko. Like most people always remember Ditko and give him his due credit. So those characters aren't really in contention with the creators anymore, or I should say the creators' estates, because all of those folks are dead now. So Eric says Zack Snyder did a terrible job with DC. Yeah, he doesn't understand superheroes. That's what I was saying earlier on in the stream before you appeared. The movies Zack Snyder did well on are the movies where he did not veer off the source material. 300 being an example. Yeah, like I said, he can do decent movies, just not superhero movies. 300 was great. That was like probably my favorite film that he did outside of the zombie film. Um, those two are like his best films. But it's like I was saying earlier before you came on, there's nothing in his filmography that would say this is a great filmmaker. And that's what I was saying earlier, is that I didn't buy the whole his father needed to die in Man of Steel to prove that Superman, Clark Kent shouldn't use his powers because people weren't ready to accept him, and that if he did, the government would be after him and all that. That's like, that just doesn't make sense. I was like, if a more clever filmmaker, a more talented filmmaker, like I said, someone of the stature of like Ron Howard did that, it would have probably been more believable, because you have one of the greatest actors ever to play Pa Kent, which is Kevin. How do you mess up Pa Kent when you have Kevin freaking Costner playing him? You even have Russell Crowe playing his biological father, playing Jor-El. You have two of the greatest actors playing both his parental figures, and you still mess it up. That means it's not on the actors. It wasn't on the actors end. It was on the filmmaking end, and that's Zack Snyder. He's not a talented director. I'll go down swinging saying that. I will take it to the wall saying it. Zack Snyder is just a Michael Bay pretending to be Christopher Nolan. That's all he is. He's Michael Bay who took one semester of a philosophy class and then thinks he's deep by deconstructing the superheroes. No one wants to see their superheroes deconstructed in a fucking cinematic universe where the whole cinematic universe is built on these superheroes. You don't deconstruct superheroes in the main movie. You deconstruct superheroes in a parody of the superheroes, like The Boys. The Boys is a deconstruction of superheroes, but you don't deconstruct superheroes in the actual superhero movie and then pat yourself on the back and say, yes, look how clever I am. Look what I made Batman into a proto-fascist, and I made Superman killed because he never killed before. So let's see what happens in a world where he has to kill someone. Let me give myself a pat on the back. No, fucking Zack Snyder sucks. And people keep thinking he left the DC films because of his daughter's suicide. That was not the reason. He was already fired before his daughter killed herself. They used that as an excuse so he could leave with grace and not be seen as someone who got fired. But it was obviously he was fired because he was still showing executive producer credits on the later movies, of which he wasn't even included. He was fired. It wasn't his daughter committing suicide. He was let go because the 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 W the WB executives at the time were saying that his movies weren't doing well. That's why they completely redid Suicide Squad, because of how poorly Batman versus Superman did. They completely reshot a lot of stuff for Suicide Squad. That's why when you look at the movie, it doesn't seem like it has like a linear plot to it, because the original plot was ripped apart. Super Yati says, I would really love Warner Brothers to make some cool comeback since Marvel is not at all peak anymore, unlike Disney. Well, Warner Brothers isn't DC Comics. You mean DC Comics under Warner Brothers, which is now called Warner Media. Afterward, because it's Warner Media now that it was bought out and merged with the people who do this, do the Discovery Channel. Like they combined and made it Warner Media. Um, so unlike Disney, the way they recaptured Marvel's universe, especially Avengers, in places like India and China, where people get to know through movies, not comics. Well, that's their fault. Like, to be honest, like if you get to know the characters through the movies and not the comics, you're kind of hurting yourself, because the comics are easy to access. Like you can buy them regardless of what country you're in. You can buy these comic books, or you can get them online. There's comic book apps that you can get it, where you can look at that stuff. You can pay for it, or there's places where you can get it for free. Or there was a great YouTube channel called Comicstorian, where the guy unfortunately just passed away just a few days ago. Um, Benny from Comicstorian. He used to actually read all the big storylines coming from the comics. Like he would just remove the words out of the comic book bubbles, the thought the thought and speech bubbles, but he would tell the entire story and he would narrate it himself. So if you didn't have access to comic books, but you wanted to know like the latest storyline, what's going on in Batman, or even in manga, he did manga as well. He had a separate channel for manga. It was called Manga Storian. Or he had a third channel, which was like, what's the problem with, and he would go on like with different problems going on in different comic book stories. So that was a free way to learn about comics outside of the outside of the movies, because the movies are not a one-to-one correspondence with what's going on in the comics. Like that's why comic book fans always make fun of people who only know about superheroes through the movies, because the movies aren't a good representation of the superheroes in their canon universe. Like comic book fans don't consider the movies canon. It's like, I'm trying to think of an equivalent. It's like I don't know. It's like people who don't watch sports and only look at like highlights, or highlights of stuff that happens. It's like, you know, it's not the same thing. Shubert Jolly says, I'm still desperate to see a Dr. Fate movie along with Black Adam versus Shazam and Superman. You're not going to see it. Like, no one. Dr. Fate has never been a character that. He's not going to have his own movie. He's only like a tertiary character. He's 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 basically like DC Comics version of Doctor Strange, but he's not as charismatic, and he's not help, and the role of Doctor Fate isn't just one person. Like Doctor Strange is, Stephen Strange. That's him. Like, there's no other Doctor Strange but he. Like there's other people who are Sorcerer Supreme, but that's the difference. Like Doctor Fate is the title, not the person, whereas Doctor Strange is the person, not the title, which who happens to be Sorcerer Supreme. But like Dr. Fate, since it's played by multiple characters and he's not very charismatic, I don't think he's going to have his own movie. He'll just be included in movies, like if they decide to do a Justice Society movie. And the Black Adam movie was probably the closest we came to a Justice Society character. But remember, that's not part of the James Gunn movies. When James Gunn came in to, like, they reorganized and created DC Studios the way they have Marvel Studios. So now they have DC Studios to do DC films, and basically everything that came prior to that is no longer considered part of the DC cinematic universe going forward, which is the DCU. Nothing that came out of the Snyderverse is going to be considered continuous with the James Gunn directed films. So James Gunn was basically brought in to be the Kevin Feige of DC, and so everything prior to that is not going to be considered canon. So the whole Black Adam thing is not going to be considered as part of that universe. Like Black Adam was probably the last attempt by the Snyderverse to try to make a successful film, and it flopped. So, yeah. Eric says the Siegel estate. Right. I'm sorry, Jerry Siegel, not Joe Shuster. That who was his co-creator. I don't know if this Shuster estate even has any bearing on Superman anymore, but he said it's not worked out. They have made some agreements, but the Shuster Siegel estate constantly go at DC. I mean, again, I get that, but it's not. It's that's not really, that's above our pay grade. Like, as far as them working out, that has nothing to do with what shows up in the movies or not. Because, like I said, they give due credit to them when it says and Superman created by Jerry Siegel and Joel Shuster, and it says by permission of the Siegel family. Um, that has nothing to do with who shows up in the movies or not. It's just that they change. It's just that most of the time, animated films and live action films don't have never had a one-to-one correspondence with the comic books. They just never have, because when you get filmmakers involved, they want to put their own interpretation on the story, so they change stuff. Like Hush, they changed Hush to the Riddler. In All Star Superman, they changed that. And Flash the Parapoint Paradox actually follow pretty closely to the graphic novel, but again, they made some changes. I've never seen a one-to-one correspondence between like the comic books or graphic novels and then the later animated film or live action film. When it comes to comic books, that is. To other stuff, yes, but with the superhero stuff, they always change stuff a little bit to tweak it. Um, and it doesn't have anything to do with residuals to the artists or writers. It has to do with filmmaking decisions about what they think would work for a more general audience. Now, sometimes some things might be changed, especially in live action. Um, some things might be changed because of disagreements about who owns the rights to what characters, but that's not really so much the case anymore, especially with the animated films, because they don't even put the animated films in the same standing as the live action films, unfortunately, because a lot of people have said they should hire the people who make the animated films to do the live action ones. Jared is gone. These people who are talking irrelevant shit are just banned. I don't care about these little side conversations. Eric says also the original version of Superman is about to go into the public domain, so DC has to deal with that. Yeah, the original version, but that's just like the original version of Mickey Mouse went into the public domain a few years ago. But the public still can't use Superman. They can just use that golden age era of him, who, by the way, couldn't fly, didn't have a weakness to kryptonite. Like the golden age version of Superman is not what we picture Superman today. It's just like Steamboat Mickey is not the version of Mickey Mouse we think of today. That's the only version that went into the public domain, was the Steamboat Willie version of Mickey Mouse. Just like the golden era, the golden age Superman might go into the public domain, but that's not Superman as we know him today. He couldn't fly. He wasn't like, he didn't have a vulnerability to green kryptonite. Um, he doesn't have any of the powers of the Superman today. So he's like he's an archaic version of him. Most people's idea of Superman comes from the Silver Ages. Eric says the Ditko estate has been in constant litigation with Marvel too. These families will never settle because it's easy money for them without doing much of any work. Yeah, I'm not disputing that there are still like ongoing disputes with the comic book, um, with the you know the publishers versus the artists and writers. That I'm not disputing that at all, Eric. I'm just saying that has nothing to do really with how they make those movies. The movies just tend to change what happens in the books because they never want to follow the books closely because they want to make their own interpretation of what happened in those books. That's like I said, that's the primary reason that the films are never the same as the books. It's just the filmmakers want to make their own interpretation of those storylines. Same thing with Batman Year One, um, Batman, the Dark Hollow, what was it? The Long Halloween, all that sort of stuff. Like they change stuff because they the filmmakers want to make their own interpretation of those stories. And Pennywise, I can't stand none of these Marvel movies. None of them stick to the comics. I mean, that's I can't blame that on Marvel. Like I said, none of them do. The closest I've seen a story stick to the comics was Spawn, and that movie sucked. That's why they're making a new Spawn movie now. That's gonna, if they're still making it, I haven't heard anything advertising it yet. But it's supposed to star Jamie Foxx as Spawn, but this time it's going to be more of a horror movie. Like you get to see Spawn from the perspective of everyone else instead of from a first person point of view. From Spawn's point of view, it's like now you're observing it from like a second person point of view where you're one of the people observing Spawn come into real life. That might actually be better because the original Spawn, Todd McFarlane had too much control over the movie and it sucked. Like that's another reason why people don't always like to do a one-to-one correspondence with the comic books because they don't think when you put it on film that it'll have the same impact that it does in the books because it's a whole different art between filmmaking and the books. So actually, yeah, that's why Zack Snyder was terrible for DC. Making Superman a dark, brooding character that was always on the verge of snapping was a terrible direction to take. That's literally what I was saying. Like I was telling people that an hour ago, Eric. I was like, he was the wrong man for the job because he's not a dark, brooding character. I was like, how do you take the most hopeful character in all of the DC multiverse, the guy that everyone looks to for hope when everyone thinks all hope is lost, and make him dark and brooding? Like I was like, that's Bruce Wayne. Like you're not being clever if you make every character dark and brooding. Like when Justice League came out, every character was mopey except for Wonder Woman. Like every character was dark and brooding. Cyborg was dark and brooding. For some reason, the Flash, who Barry Allen became like this, he became like Batman's Robin. He became like his unofficial Robin. I'm like, that's not Barry Allen. First of all, Barry Allen wasn't a kid in the comics, and two, he wasn't this goofy character. Like Barry Allen was like a serious, hard-nosed police scientist. Like maybe Wally West was more of a goofy teenage type character, but Barry Allen never was. It was like clearly Zack Snyder doesn't understand these characters. Pennywise's Infinity Gauntlet was nothing like the movie. None of them were. Civil War wasn't. Um, um, the what's Ultron wasn't. Besides that, and in the comics, Ultron actually happened after the Infinity storyline, not before it. So they changed that because in the comics, the Ultron story happened after um, the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. And of course, they changed that because there was supposed to be Adam Strange who saved everybody and all this sort of stuff. And they didn't. And you didn't even see him until Guardian of the Galaxy 3. They made him into this goofy version of himself. They made him to like a goofy kid on Guardian of the Galaxy 3. So I know a lot of people who are familiar with Adam Strange was like, that's whack. So, but most people who go to MCU movies, I can't say most, at least half of the people who go to MCU movies don't even read the comics, so they didn't even know that Adam Strange was done a undue service by how they portrayed him in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Not to mention he was supposed to be the savior of the whole Infinity Gauntlet storyline, but it Endgame was still, even though they changed it, Infinity War and Endgame were still like some of the best stuff the MCU ever did, even though it completely changed the stories. But they were still some of the best movies and they were made by the Russell brothers. They need to bring them back to do Secret Wars. They even said that they would come back to do Secret Wars, and that they would love to do it. And instead, they've chosen some other people to do Secret Wars. So I think Secret Wars is probably going to suck. The only way they can get people back in the seats, they better bring back the Russell brothers, and maybe Joss Whedon. I know he was canceled because of Me Too culture, this and that, but they should bring back the people who made the movies good. They can't get James Gunn back now since he's running DC, but they could get back Josh Whedon. He was awesome. Get back the Russell brothers. He was awesome. The three of them, along with James Gunn, made the best MCU movies. Oh, and the guy who did the Spider-Man movies as well. Comic Infinity Gauntlet was so much better than the movies. Yeah, I mean that's usually the case. But again, the MCU movies were never even tried to make the movies correspond with the comics. Like Eric said, none of the movies were like the comics. Most of the characters were not accurate adaptations. So you guys weren't in the stream earlier, but what I was saying was the reason why the characters aren't like the canon characters from the 616 continuity was because when the MCU first started, a lot of the characters adaptations came actually from the Ultimate Universe. Like when you look at Nick Fury and all of that came out of the Ultimate Universe, not the new one that they just restarted, but the original version of the Marvel Ultimates, like the versions of we see of Captain America, Nick Fury, Iron Man, Thor, all those that came out of the Ultimate Universe. That's what they were modeling them on eventually, but then that kind of felt like that kind of went astray. But you can see, like, if you watched Phase 1, and if you rewatch the Phase 1 movies, like those versions of all those characters are modeled on their Ultimate Universe version of them. Pennywise says Nebula's character, what? Eric says Thor, Hulk, Spider-Man are the most egregious deviations. Pennywise says, I'm subscribed to the channel. Appreciate it, Pennywise. Eric said he passed away not long ago. Wait, who passed away? Oh, you talking about Benny from Comic Historian? Yeah, that's what I was saying. I did a shout out to him a few days ago, the day that I found out he passed away, because the thing was he died over a week ago, but it wasn't reported until I saw it on Entertainment Tonight that very morning. Like they posted that he had died actually a week before it was released to the public. Like, so he died the very day that he released his last video on the Comic Historian channel. So everyone went to his channel, including me, to give a RIP in the comment section and give a like. If you guys haven't, go to Comic Historian. His family and the other people he ran the channel with said they're going to keep the channel going, so don't worry about that. But the last video that Benny did, like everyone went went to Comic Historian channel to watch that last video he did, because he did that video the same day that he died, which is sad. And everyone left the RIP in the comments. So yeah, again, RIP to Benny, because dude was awesome. Like he, like for like if you wanted to like know about a comic book, but you didn't feel like reading through the whole, like all 12 issues or however long that series was to learn about something, he gave, he would do a summary of that whole storyline. And it was awesome. Like, and he also did manga. So he had a manga historian channel, and he did a third channel where he was talking about what's called my problem with, and it would be, every video would be like his problem with certain aspects of the comics today. So all three channels were worth checking out. And like I said, his very last upload he did was the day he died, and so everyone gave a shout out to him. And the last video was about why DC reboots are better than Marvel reboots. Shubajati says, "Sir, the issue was in the 80s and 90s. They were barely any U.S. comic books. Marvel and DC came into fame after Spider-Man first movie and Dark Knight, which did really well in my country." Oh, you mean in your country there weren't any comic books? I'm about to say there was plenty. Well, I can't speak for the 80s and 90s. I don't know. I was a kid back then, so I really can't say, especially for. But back then there weren't that many movies. I'm talking about in the 2000s and 2010s. I wasn't talking about the 80s and 90s. I was talking about in the 2000s and 2010s. Everyone had access to comic book stuff either online, or or they might have been able to order the stuff from a online store. So I wasn't talking about the 80s and 90s. I'm talking about within the last 15 years. With the, yeah, like the last 15, 16 years. Like that's what I'm talking about. Like I'm not really talking about 80s and 90s. But even back then, people still knew about those characters. Like even if you knew nothing, if you never read those comics, you still heard of Superman, you still heard of Batman, you still heard of Spider-Man. Those are and were the three most popular comic book heroes across the world. Like even people who don't know superheroes or read comic books still know Superman, Batman, Spider-Man. Um, but I mean, now with the movies, of course, more people are familiar with them. But I'm saying casual, like people who just casually watch the movies aren't considered fans by people who actually read the comic books, because the movies don't really represent the characters accurately. Yeah, Penny is dead. Pennywise, I'm not joking. Like he literally died last. I mean, he died like it was like June 6th or something like that. But it wasn't, it wasn't released to the public till like Wednesday. It was like Tuesday or Wednesday when they released it to the public that he had died. Yeah, so he passed away. What Eric, when he's saying what Super Jody was saying, because you saying 90s hit the largest boom in comics, they were selling millions of books each month. Yeah, because they actually led. You and I know that that's what actually led to the comic book bubble that burst back in the 90s, which caused Marvel to go bankrupt, and DC had their issue, had a big financial failure too, but not as bad as Marvel. DC had their almost went bankrupt in the 80s, and Marvel went almost bankrupt in the 90s, which is what led them to sell off all the legacy characters to these different film studios because of the comic book bubble. But but he's referring to India, Eric. Like, and he's saying in India there wasn't access to those books back in the 80s and 90s. That's what he's saying. Shubajati says, "Yeah, Eric, our country got globalized after 1992, and since then everything was domesticated. Comics came way later, like after the 2000s. I remember comics like Ben 10 and DC Comics coming to the market, right?" You didn't see me anywhere, Rain. I don't know why you saying that, cause like if you're a grown ass man talking that gang shit, you're a fucking loser. Like no one, who the I think I think Long Beach Griffey said it the best. Like, who the fuck is a loser in the 21st century still saying I bang here and this and that, sitting there banging over neighborhoods you don't even fucking own. Like, none of y'all niggas even own shit. Like, living in the fucking projects, selling crack with your little burners, can't because you can't even get a legal gun. Talking about I run this block and you don't own a goddamn thing in that fucking place other than your little overpriced clothing. Get out of here with that cuz shit. That sounds dumb as fuck. Fucking niggas. Anyway, sorry. Brought out the Baltimore in me for a minute. Anyway, Eric says, I'm assuming you are not in the US. He's not, he's in India. So 90s was when the comic book industry as a whole was at its largest. DC specifically was exploding. Marvel was on the verge of bankruptcy. And Image and other indie publishers were exploding too. Because they all left Marvel. Sugar Guy says, yeah, damn, the Flash season 1 was a hot talk among every Indian kid that time, especially among girls because of the character of Grant Gustin. But God knows the CW crew screwed the story and made it worse. Yeah, Flash. The first 2 seasons of CW Flash were good, and the first 3 seasons of the Arrow were good. And when the Flash came out, it was actually doing better than the Arrow, so they went from calling it the Arrowverse to the Flash Arrowverse. But in the end, the Arrow was a more and like the Arrow was like CW's low budget Batman for the long time because CW wasn't allowed to use Batman in their TV shows. So he became like their de facto Batman, and Supergirl was their de facto Superman. Like she originally was on like CBS or whatever, and then it got canceled, and they brought it to the CW and put it and folded her into the same Arrowverse with Flash and the Green Arrow. But they instead of using her own storylines, they basically just stole Superman storylines and turned them into Supergirl storylines for the CW. And then they made it all about. They made like one season, I think the second season that it was on CW, all about feminism, which was just dumb. But see, all the CW superhero shit sucked. Mm-hmm. The greens. What's in the fridge? Oh, okay. Thank you. Sorry, guys. I'm back. Um, yeah, but I watched season 1 and season 2 of Flash. I watched it probably up until the 4th season, and I watched the Arrow up until probably the 5th season, and then I came back for the very last few episodes. So after I stopped watching Arrow and the Flash, I would still watch like the crossovers they would do at the end of the year. I watched those, but I didn't watch the end of the Flash because it just was too bad. It just got really it got worse than Arrow, and Arrow was bad by the end, but it got worse than the Arrow. So I I like the Arrow better, even though like I said he was like a wannabe Batman. Aman says love from India. You know that's my name. Well, Aman. I'm guessing you're a lady because the only reason I'm guessing you're a lady, Aman, is that I literally have a neighbor right next door. She and her husband. His real name is Deepak, but he said just call him D. His wife's name is Aman as well, so we get along. I was like, when she first told me, she's like, my name's Aman. I was like, your name's Aman. I said, my name's Aman. She's like, oh really? I was like, yeah. But she's not Muslim. I think she and her husband are Sikh because he has the hair wrap. Very nice. They're like the nicest neighbors on the block. So I'm always nice to them. I think one day the husband, he was at work and she actually came to our door and asked if I could help her remove a squirrel, like a dead squirrel from their from their yard. They're women, they don't want to. So I put on some latex gloves and picked it up, and then we took it to the dumpster because she originally said, "Hey, should we bury it?" And I was like, "I don't know if we should bury it." we live in a townhome community, so I don't know what if if that'd be against the HOA rules or anything. It probably wasn't, but I didn't want to bury a squirrel, to be honest. I was like, let's just take him to the dump. And, I took him to the dump, and, you know, D came by and said, hey, thanks, man, for helping out the wife. I was like, that's no problem. That's what good neighbors supposed to do. Unfortunately, I have really bad neighbors in this neighborhood, too, but they are nice. Like I said, Indian folks, they're really nice. Um, Another nice neighbor, I have some other neighbors, good neighbors, black neighbors who live next to me, but we have some nice Indian and other folks from South Asia and the Desi community to live in our neighborhood. We even had it was one guy, this Indian father came to our house one day because his son actually insulted my niece. I think he called her the N word or whatever, and he actually brought his son to our house and made him apologize. I was like, that's good parenting. That is good parenting. And he apologized himself. He said, I'm sorry for my son's behavior. He was like, he knows better than that. He will not be doing that again. He's like, isn't that right? That's good parenting. So yeah. And one of my best friends in high school up until like the end of college is Indian. um I wish we still hung out, but we have our separate lives now. But anyway, back to the subject. Eric says the original Batman is going to public domain too. Again, I don't care because they're not the versions of Batman that we know. They're not the what we think of Batman and what we think of Superman came from the Silver Age. What came out of the golden age of comic books aren't what people would think of when they think of Superman or Batman. Superman could only jump really high. He couldn't fly. He actually didn't fly until the success of the original Captain Marvel. Now called Shazam. He could he could fly, and the Captain Marvel story comic books became more popular than Superman. So DC, or National Publications at the time, then sued the makers of Captain Marvel, saying that he was he was a plagiarization of Superman, which he really was, and successfully shut them down, and ended up buying the character later, but then took his ability to fly and added it to Superman's characteristics. Like I said, both he and the original golden era Batman had no problem killing people, and Superman used to talk trash to people too. At that, he was not the Boy Scout we know and love today. Like, Superman would talk gruff to people. He'd be like, yeah, how about I beat you up? Like, this is literally like, I have the old books. Like, Superman was not the nice guy he is today, the Boy Scout that everyone hates or claims to hate today. He talked tough. He would be like, yeah, how would you like it if I beat you up? Like, he doesn't this. So the ones that are going into the public domain, just like Steamboat Willie version of Mickey Mouse, those are not like what we think of when we think of Mickey Mouse and Superman and Batman. Spawn did suck. That movie was a turd sandwich, yeah. And I didn't like. What did you think about the HBO series? Because I didn't like that either, to be honest. It had its ups and downs, but again, that's sometimes when the artist has too much control over the films and TV shows is actually a bad thing. So that's why I was saying you never see like a one-to-one correspondence between the books and the TV shows, because usually filmmakers want to tweak those stories to make it better for the screen, because sometimes what works well in the books doesn't work well on screen, and vice versa. Sometimes things that work well on the screen don't work well in books. And I think the writers and the filmmakers need to know their role, need to stay within their lane. And like Todd McFarlane had way too much control over both the TV show and the movie. That's why they suck. Like, hopefully, even though he is going to have a lot of creative control over the new one starring Jamie Foxx, it won't be as bad. But to be honest, I'm not planning on going to the theaters to see it. Not unless like it's a really, really good trailer for it. Eric says the movie wasn't comic book accurate though. They excluded main key points and characters and race swapped a bunch of characters too. Yeah. Dude did that with Sandman, but again that was a creative decision by the writer himself. Same thing with Todd McFarlane. He decided on those changes. So, I mean, you know, it's like then it's weird. Like if you get mad when it's the actual like creator of the property, like can you get mad at the creator if he decides to gender or race swap characters? Because that's what the guy did who created Sandman. He made it for Netflix, and he did some race and gender swapping of characters, including Constantine or Constantine, if people want to be pedantic about it. Constantine is now a female, but there was a female version of Constantine in those books. But the original he's he's not using the John Constantine character in the Sandman Netflix show. He's using one of Constantine's ancestors instead of using John Constantine. Eric says, yeah, Cyborg was terrible. He was supposed to be this cool and upbeat character, and they turned him into some emo kid. Yeah, everyone was expecting the Cyborg. I'm sorry, but everyone was expecting the Cyborg from the Titans TV show. Like everyone wanted the guy that goes booyah. Like everybody wanted that. That's what everyone was looking for. Instead, they made him like why like it didn't make sense. Why is Cyborg more dour than Batman? Like that doesn't make any sense. Like they made him more. How do you make Cyborg more dour than Batman? They literally made him more dour than Batman. Even in the Zack Snyder the extended when he made the remember when he released the extended Justice League the Snyder cut. In the Snyder cut it gives the Snyder cut is better than the theater release because Zack Snyder got to finish his own version of what he wanted the Justice League to be like. So everyone in that 5-part movie series is like fully fleshed out. But like I said, he made everyone more dour in the movie. Like literally, Batman and Wonder Woman are the only ones who aren't dour. I'm like, how? Like, why is Batman the upbeat person? He's not supposed to be the upbeat person in the Justice League. Like Cyborg is like the brooding person's. Zach needs to be kept the hell away from all. Just like Michael Bay needs to be kept away from anything that came out of the 80s. Zack Snyder needs to be kept away from superheroes. Eric says Ant-Man, Hank Pym created Ultron in the comics. Yep. Um, Mar Avengers Mightiest Earth's Mightiest Heroes, the animated series, that is much better than than the MCU and showing those characters like how they were in the comics. I think it's much closer. And I'm not talking about Marvel Avengers Assemble, the later cartoon, because that was like the later version of the Avengers animated series. Because the first one was Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, and then later on, after the success of the Avengers film, they made Avengers Assemble, which was like the animated series to follow closely what was going on in the movies. That one kind of sucked, but Earth's Mightiest Heroes version of the Avengers animated series, that was good. It shows like Ant-Man, the Hank Pym, not Scott Lang, the Hank Pym working with Tony Stark to create Ultron, and the Pym particles and all that sort of stuff, and the fact that not Frank, I'm sorry, Reed Richards is the smartest person in Marvel, along with Doctor Doom, Hank Pym, who's scientist supreme, and all of that. Shubert Jai says, sir, that's when I'm saying half the people in our country never had comics of Marvel, but their marketing and their marketing and movies were so good that it created a huge impact amongst the youth. That's fair, and that's what the movies were designed to do. Oftentimes, the movies are made to generate an interest so that people would then go back to the comics and say, hey, let me read these comics about these characters I've seen in the movies. that that's when you have good movies, when the movies inspire you to read the books. And I've done that. It's stuff that I've read, that I've seen first on film, then I later went on to read the books. Not just with comic books, but with other things too. Like I watched the Game of Thrones, like the first couple of episodes before I went and read all of the Song of Ice and Fire books, or at least the first 5 books, because no, book 6 and book 7 are never coming out. I just don't believe it. Different subject, but there's been some superhero stuff that I've watched the movies first, and then later on went back to the comic books. So that's I think that's a to me that's a W. If a movie inspires you to read the comic books, to me that's a W for both the filmmakers and for the comic book artists and writers. To me, that's a W. Eric says, yeah, they did Adam Strange so wrong, right? He had an important role in defeating Thanos. He was the only one. Well, he's the one who gathered everybody to fight Thanos. Him and Silver Surfer. Instead, we got this bull crap. I still like the Infinity War and Endgame, even though it had nothing to do with the storyline version. It was still a good it was still a good ending of the Infinity Saga for the MCU movies. To me, it was a great ending, and probably include to be honest, probably including Adam Strange into that would have just been too much. But they still could have done him better than the way they did him in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. They made him laughable. Like now, like if they plan on using him in future stories, like people aren't going to take him seriously. Because the actor who plays him, like no one takes him seriously either. Like I forgot the name of the actor who plays Adam Strange, but he's been used in Facebook GIFs for like the last 10 years. Like he's been used in memes and GIFs on Facebook for like the last 10 years, and to see him play a serious character like Adam Strange, who's sort of like this Jesus like character, like it just messed it up. And who knows if they'll use someone like Hyperion, another Superman like Marvel character. They'll probably mess that up too, because I think they were talking about using Hyperion at some point. Versus the Ultimate Universe is a continuity nightmare. Samuel Jackson. Well, yeah, that's why they killed off the original run of the Ultimates universe, because it got so weird. It got it got really weird, right? But that's where we got Miles Morales, so I'm thankful for that. We had some good stuff come out of the Ultimates universe, and I think it was more like the adaptation of the characters are what was used in the phase 1 of the MCU. But yeah, the continuity was a definite nightmare. That's why they killed it off. But they brought it back this year. They brought back the Ultimates. So we'll see how they do it this time. Is that Nick Fury is the biological son of the original Nick Fury in the Ultimate Universe, right? Because it was Nick Fury Jr., but then they changed it up in the MCU and they just made him Nick Fury, and then they did the same thing then in the Marvel, and then just made him the Nick Fury, not the son of Nick Fury, who was a white guy who was played by um what's the guy from Knight Rider that played Michael Knight, Hasselhoff. uh you don't hassle the Hoff, but no, remember they actually in the old I don't know if it was a movie about Nick Fury himself, or he was either in that old 90s Fantastic Four film or that old Avengers film that never made it past like a video release, but they had like a Nick Fury played by Hasselhoff with the eye patch. It's funny because that is actually how the old Nick Fury looked. He looked just like that. So how did Benny pass? Was they didn't say, like they didn't when they released it on Entertainment Tonight. They didn't say exactly how he died, so we don't know if it was a car accident or what. I'm guessing it's something that wasn't. He didn't die in a peaceful manner, because I thought it was a car accident, but then when I looked at it, they were kind of vague about exactly how he died. I think it's probably gonna come out later exactly how he died, but they didn't say exactly. Shirajai says 2:15 a.m. So I'm feeling sleepy. See you tomorrow. All right, good chat with you as always. Thank you. Um, Eric says, yeah, I agree. The CW stuff was garbage. Man, it was. Did you? Oh, you weren't in the chat yesterday. I think it was yesterday when I I did a large rant on why Black Lightning sucked. God, that show sucked. So so, but I did enjoy Superman and Lois. I'm not sure if that was CW. It was the CW. It was. But I liked how Superman was depicted on that show. It was good. I was cynical at first because they used the guy who played in the MTV version of Teen Wolf to play him. And I'm like, that dude looks too scrawny to play Superman, but he's actually decent. I watched like the first. I didn't watch all of it. I watched like the first couple of episodes of it, and it actually wasn't bad. It just wasn't my cup of tea. Because I've seen so many TV versions of Superman. Like I watched Superboy back in the '80s. Um, and then there was the fake "Knock Me Off My Secret Identity," which was like a knockoff of Superboy, if you remember that. Um, then I watched a little bit of Clark. What was it? Lois and Clark back in the day. Everyone loved well, I can't say everyone, but a lot of people loved Lois and Clark. I didn't like Smallville. I remember I had a friend told me, she's like, just watch an episode. So I watched an episode. I was like, man, this sucks. I was like, it's just a soap opera. So I never got into Smallville. I never understood how Smallville lasted 10 years. And he was never Superman throughout that whole 10 years. Like literally the last episode, they showed him in a uniform, but he was never Superman throughout all the whole Smallville thing. I never got into Smallville, but I like Lois and Clark. I liked Superboy and My Secret Identity, which was like I said, a knockoff version of Superboy. But after watching all that, I wasn't really interested in seeing another Superman TV show because usually they nerf him so bad in the TV shows that it just makes it not enjoyable because he's like they nerf him so badly. But I did a I did a big rant yesterday about why Black Lightning sucks. Cause I was basically saying any black superhero character with the moniker Black in their name is just corny to me. Like the only one who gets away with it is Black Panther because he is the original black superhero. But everyone else that came after, if they had Black in their name, it was just corny, like Black Lightning. Plus, a lot of these black superheroes all had lightning based uh, superpowers. Even Miles Morales has an electroshock power, and it's like I never understood why every black character has to have electric based powers. It's just corny. Um, and Black Lightning was just so corny, and it's like they tried so hard to be like pro black in the show that it just made it look like they were trying too hard. Like it looked like it didn't to me, and I could be wrong, but to me it seemed like it wasn't black writers writing it. It seemed like it was like some woke liberals version of what they think being pro black is writing it. Like I remember they literally brought John from the Arrow onto Black Lightning when they did the crossover, right? And John never really talked about his like race and like he never really talked about his race and all sort of stuff like that in the Green Arrow show. But as soon as he's on Black Lightning, he and Black Lightning just kept repeating by any means necessary throughout the crossover. I'm like, God, this is corny. I was like, we all know John is black. We don't need him and Black Lightning to keep saying by any means necessary to both prove they're both pro black. It was just horrible. I was like, I hated that show. And it wasn't even based in the original place it was supposed to be. Like where Black Lightning was, he was a teacher in a black community of uh of Metropolis, but now he's in like a completely different city, and it's God, that show was so corny, and it had the same little actresses from the Tyler Perry films, which was already a red flag. Like if you bringing in people from the Tyler Perry movies, it's probably not going to be good. Uh, sis, I'm not even paying attention to him. I just silently banned him. um, sis says there was a movie where Batman was like evil, being framed as being evil and leaving his bat sign down, but I never found the movie again where he was. All right, let me see where he was evil. What was it like? Was it like actual Batman, or was it like a parody of the Batman, like the Owl or something like that? Because you have a bunch of you have a bunch of parodies out there. Um, I don't know, like of it. Like the only thing was like in Superman versus Batman, when he caught the criminals, he would brand them. So when they went to prison, they knew that this person was like a predator or touching kids or something. They would murder him and murder those people in prison. And I was like, what is Zack Snyder doing? Like he has Superman, he has Batman like branding people so that when they go to prison, the other inmates will kill them. That was a very dark thing. I don't know if people remember that from Batman versus Superman, but that was really dark. Like he would catch people and then he would brand them, and the inmates knew that if that person was branded, that he was either touching kids or hurting women or something like that, and they would murder that that person that Batman caught in prison. That was really dark. Like that's what I don't understand Zack Snyder's like vision of superheroes. Like he made Batman into like a quasi fascist character. Like it was just crazy. Like I remember my friends and I, we were watching Superman versus Batman, and we actually just kept rewinding it so we could do a kill count of everyone Batman killed. Like we were saying, okay, every time the Batmobile hits someone, that is an automatic kill. Like, come on, that's an automatic kill because it's like a tank. It was like when he went to the warehouse to rescue Superman's mother, everyone he attacked was death. Like he literally gutted someone. Like when he had someone up against the door, and you just saw his gauntlet come in and cut through the person, and they didn't show it so it wouldn't be too graphic, but that was a death. when he threw that when he threw that box when he threw that wooden box at someone's head and it just left blood all over the wall, that was a death. So we just had fun. We just was sitting there like we were just sitting there debating what was considered a death. So we were just counting up his kill count, and we just kept rewinding like, oh no, no, that's a death, that's a death. Oh, he hit someone with that Batmobile, that's a death. Oh, he hit all those guys in that truck, that's a death. Oh, the Batmobile just jumped over that car and crushed him. That's a death. So that to me was the closest we had to an evil Batman was Ben Affleck. At least in the Batman versus Superman. Then they kind of watered him down for the Justice League movie, but he had a double digit kill count in Batman versus Superman for sure. See, Cherry 706 Spawn was lit. You talking about the series? Like I watched the first two seasons, but it was to me it the only reason I watched it was not because it was good. I just wanted to see how dark it would get. But it was like really the Spawn HBO series. It got really it got dark, my dude. It got dark. Jamie Foxx's Spawn, come on, son. I, I'm not saying it won't be bad. I said I would watch it. I'm just saying unless I see a good trailer for it, I'm not going to pay for it. I'm not going to go to the theaters to see it. I am going to go see it, but unless I see like a good trailer, I'm not going to the movies because, like I said, Todd McFarlane has too much creative control over the Spawn movies. The last movie he did back in the day with, the first time he had Michael Jai White playing Spawn, and that movie sucked because, like I said, I don't think the comic book writers should have creative control over the films because if they like they don't know what makes good film as compared to what makes a good comic book story. It's not the same thing. So hopefully it's going to be better because this time with Jamie Foxx playing Spawn, it's not going to be like a action film. It's going to be a horror movie. That I think that might be pretty cool, having like a horror movie comic book film, because the closest we got to that so far was Werewolf by Night. If you saw that on Disney Plus, if you haven't seen Werewolf by Night, that is good. They made two versions. Like the original version is in black and white, so it's supposed to be like an old timey Universal monster movie sort of feel. It's supposed to be like like you watching a old Universal film monster movie from like the 50s. So it's good. But then they later did a version of it where they colorized it. But to me, watch the version in black and white is so much better. Like even my wife, she enjoyed it when we were watching it. So Werewolf by Night is a good comic book horror film, and it's continuous with the MCU. Actually, I think I think it is. Um, and but the last time they tried to do like a superhero horror film, it didn't work. It was the New Mutants. The New Mutants was the last of the X-Men films under Fox Studios before Fox was, you know, bought out by Disney. So the New Mutants was the last of the X-Men films, and it was horrible. It had the girl that plays the that plays the girl in Game of Thrones. Like that movie was so bad. The movie New Mutants had actually been filmed 3 years before they finally released it in like 2018, 2019. It had, that's how bad the movie was. Like they had it sitting on the shelf for a few years before they actually released it in the theaters, and I can see why they probably should have never released it. It was horrible. It was supposed to be like a horror film version of like the X-Men, but it really had nothing to do with the New Mutant storyline from the comics, and the horror really didn't come through. But Werewolf by Night did. That was good, and hopefully the Spawn will be lit. We'll see. But the HBO series was not it. TNT VR says hello. What's up? What happened to the Gambit movie? So they never filmed it because remember it was supposed to be Channing Tatum was supposed to play Gambit, but the studio said they didn't want to make it. That was probably because the remember all the X-Men films weren't doing well. Like Apocalypse was bad. Um, yeah, Apocalypse didn't do well. Uh, um, what else came out at that time? And then like New Mutants that flopped. I think after I I don't think they had confidence in those movies at the time, so that's why they never made Gambit. And Channing Tatum was pissed because it was like his own passion project that he wanted to play Gambit. Um, I think he was like one of the producers behind it too, sort of like with Dwayne Wayne, The Rock, like was like one of the producers of Black Adam, and it was like his own passion project. Like since 2013, he said he wanted to play Black Adam, and he finally muscled his way into getting the movie made, and even had Henry Cavill make a cameo appearance in the post credit scene. So Gambit was Channing Tatum's post passion project, but because all those X-Men movies did so poorly at the time, like the studio lost confidence and never ended up making a movie. C Cherry says we need an X Force movie. Yeah, I mean the closest we got to X Force was Deadpool 2. So like he kind of used X Force and Deadpool 2. Remember? So we did get a little bit of X Force and Deadpool 2, even though like he saw what happened to them when they all died. Spoiler alert! If people still need spoilers from 6 years ago, but um, yeah, I mean we did sort of get X Force and Deadpool because that's where Deadpool started off from, X Force. Because Deadpool originally when his first appearance he was a bad guy. He was just a mercenary for hire. And he went against like Cable and all of them in his first appearance in X Force. So they did use a little bit of X Force in Deadpool to their credit. So Pro says main Venom is in the theaters right now, man. Boy, no, right now, boy. I'm not confident. Venom 2 sucked, dude. I can't. I don't know if Venom 3 is going to be good, but Venom 2 sucked. Like Venom, the first Venom was good, but my problem with all the Venom movies and all the Sony Spider-Man movies is no one wants to see a Spider-Man spin-off film without Spider-Man in it. And because of their agreement right now with Marvel Studios, Sony Sony is not going to do like these spin-off movies with Spider-Man in it. Um, so I don't know. Honestly, I don't think Venom 3 is going to be good because Venom 2 sucked. Like they messed up Carnage. People were looking for Carnage to be in the movies for a long time, but people wanted to see Carnage go up against Spider-Man. They didn't want to see Carnage go up against Venom or have all three of them together. If it was like Spider-Man versus Venom versus Carnage, and then Spider-Man and Venom have to team up to defeat Carnage, that would have been a great film. That would have been great. But just Venom, constantly using Venom without Spider-Man, it's not good, to be honest. And I mean, are they gonna bring in the other characters like Anti Venom and all these other folks? Like, I don't know. Tom McGuire says for any military person to endorse Donald Trump is insane. No, that has nothing to do with this. So we're strictly talking superheroes and supposed to be Superman because this is supposed to be a belated shout out to Superman Day that happened on June 12th. Eric Guapa says people can endorse whoever they want for whatever reason they want. Same. That's where I'll end that. Eric, don't let him get derailed. He wants like we're not going to talk about that. Matter of fact, he's going on timeout. You're not going Tom is not going to derail my conversation unless he's dropping a drop at unless he's dropping a cash app. Like like sitting here coming talking politics, like no. That the day for that was yesterday when I did my give me your random question or comment day. Yeah, I didn't block him this time. I just timed him out. But if he comes back with nonsense, then he'll just get banned from the channel. But these people leaving some of these sketchy things, they get Calix. Alcance says hi. What's up, Calix? Eric says I remember that in BVS. I also remember Batman using guns. Guns. Yeah, he had an actual gun. Now when he did use the gun though, that was the nightmare scenario. That wasn't in like in their world. Remember it that was called the nightmare scenario, and what that was supposed to be, like I said, if it was done by a more clever filmmaker, like someone like Ron Howard. I keep saying Ron Howard because to me he's like a really good, like even killed filmmaker, right? Um, like if someone like Ron Howard did, it would have made more sense. But most people didn't catch that nightmare scenario was supposed to be Batman's vision of what was supposed to happen in Justice League Part Two. In Justice League Part Two, Superman was supposed to be turned evil and be like the commander for the for Darkseid's forces, and so Batman and everyone else are leading like a rebellion against him. Batman and Lois Lane were supposed to hook up, and he gets her pregnant. Batman dies, sort of like Iron Man does in Endgame, and then Superman goes on, becomes good again, and then ends up raising Bruce Wayne's child that he had with Lois Lane, which would have been weird. I'm glad everything that Zack Snyder did got canceled because that was supposed to be what that was supposed to show. The nightmare scenario was Batman leading a rebellion against the evil Superman who's controlling Darkseid's forces, which is why you saw those parademons. This is why you saw him in command of those parademons, because in that nightmare vision that he saw, that was the outcome. So yeah, that was when he was using the guns, but he wasn't using guns in the regular part of the movie but he did have like machine guns on his that he was shooting people with on his Batmobile. That was just insane. Like Michael Keaton did it too. I'm not gonna front and say, oh well, Michael Keaton didn't do it. Michael Keaton was killing too, but it was just different because we didn't take that as seriously, to be honest. But this was supposed to be like a more serious Batman, and to see him just outright killing people, like I said, it became so funny that when it was released on digital, we kept rewinding just to see the kill count. Like I said, when they did the kill count, it was in the double digits. It was definitely double digit kill count for Batman. Eric says I enjoyed the Spawn series because it was much more closely knit to the source material. Also, I didn't see the Spawn series until I was in my 30s. See, I watched it as a teenager, so to me it was kind of disturbing. I'm like, dude, this shit is dark. Like I was like, what, 15, 16 when I was watching that? 15, 16, 17. That was dark. Smalls said the guy who made Spawn is cool. No, I like Todd McFarlane. Don't get me wrong, Smalls. I like Todd McFarlane. I'm just saying that the Spawn character is not really my cup of tea. So I think it is actually a good idea that the new movie that's coming out, or is supposed to come out, this time starring Jamie Foxx's Spawn. I like the fact now that it's going to be a horror movie instead of an action flick. It's supposed to be a horror film because it's going to be like how other people see Spawn. So it's not going to be from a first person point of view of Spawn himself, but from the it's going to be like other people seeing him. Like, sort of like if people, like the average person seeing Batman, depending if they're a criminal, they probably see him as this scary boogeyman out there that will stop them if they try to do something. Whereas the average citizen might either see him as a vigilante or as a hero, depending on their situation. So I think that's a pretty clever idea, actually. Plus, I like Todd McFarlane's run of Spider-Man. That was a good run. I think that's when he became the most famous. Right before he and all those other guys left and formed Image Comics was his run of the Spider. When he did his run of Spider-Man, I think that was really popular. And like, what was that, like the late '80s, early '90s, right before they formed Image Comics. Eric says, yeah, Todd McFarlane is awesome. I have the entire Spawn universe on my pull list, and I actively collect all the titles. Small said that he made it in high school. Apparently, wanted a hero who was different, who had flaws, and would do anything for love. Really cool story. He was the one who did the art for Venom. Yeah. Only thing, only thing I would say, Spawn is not a hero. He's an anti-hero, but he's definitely not a hero. Um, the stuff he does would not be something you want your kids to emulate. Spawn is definitely an anti-hero, but I mean, it's a very cool character. Also, another shout out to Todd McFarlane. His Spawn action figure started the adult collectibles. So nowadays, like, common that a lot of comic book fans and stuff collect the toys and stuff. Like they even collect the vintage toys they had as kids in the 80s and 90s, or they buy the ones made for adult collectors. So the whole adult collectors thing started with the Spawn action figure because he said he wanted to make the action figure for older older fans, for like older teenagers, young men. So the Todd McFarlane Spawn action figure became actually the very first adult collectible. So um, interesting fact. Small said I still need to read any Spawn comics because I'm trying to read a bunch of Spider-Man ones first. You can do both. You don't. I mean, it depends on how you want to read them. If you want to read Spider-Man then Spawn, but you don't have to go. It doesn't have to be either or. You can do both and just like go between. Like I read a bunch of comics at the same time. Like I'll read Batman on one end, um, Superman, Wolverine, Spider-Man. Then my non-superhero stuff, like Star Wars, um, or Transformers, whatever. So Eric says I have Spawn's first ever printed appearance, and it's not a Spawn #1. It wasn't. I didn't know that. I thought his first appearance was like a was in his own comic book. Did you get it graded? Uh, Small said, "Damn, that's freaking cool as hell." Yeah, it is. So you should post it on your channel, brother, showing it off. Oh, he said I post. Eric says I post that stuff on my Twitter account. I haven't done the YouTube stuff in over a year. Yeah, guys, if you guys know, Eric the Guapo has his own YouTube channel, so you can shout it out. If you want, you can leave the link here. I don't mind you dropping your YouTube handle if you want to do so. Eric says, if I remember right, Batman used a gun when he was saving Martha Kent. I haven't seen that movie in a long time, so my memory might be wrong. No, so he had a grapnel gun when he was saving Martha, but he didn't use like a regular. He didn't have like a regular you know pistol. He had I remember he had a grapnel gun, and he had like a knife. He had like a sort of like a karambit sort of knife, and so he was stabbing people. He used his gauntlets he used his gauntlet to gut someone at the very end before he got to oh, you know, the guy who was holding Martha Kent was actually KG Beast, right? They didn't say his name, but if you look in the credits, that's the guy who kidnapped Martha Kent. That was KG Beast. So he killed the man again. First he killed him in the comics, and then they retconned it and said he didn't kill him. He escaped out of that room, and then he killed him in the movies. They renamed him since the Soviet Union ended. He's no longer known as KG Beast. Now he's known as the NK Demon. So just like KG Beast is like, you know, a spinoff of KGB, NKD, which is then now the term for their intelligence agency. They named that same character NK Demon. So so he's still in the comics, or he was, but they renamed him. Eric says the Flash movie was terrible, but it was worse. I actually liked it. Like, I went in expecting it to be bad because, well, when I first watched the trailer, I was like, okay, this is awesome. You brought back Michael Keaton. You brought back my favorite version of Batman, and now he can kick ass. And he's old, like the Batman Beyond Bruce Wayne. I loved the trailer, but then when the movie was actually released, they trashed it so bad. I'm like, man, I don't even want to see this in the movies now. But I saw it and I was like, this isn't actually bad. Like, we're talking about how the special effects and stuff were bad, and I was like, the special effects isn't bad. I get exactly what they were doing. They made the special effects were intentionally supposed to look surreal, to show that he was in the Speed Force, and like everything was like sort of spacey looking and all of that. But it was meant to look surreal, so I didn't have a problem with that. I just didn't like Barry Allen. Like, aside from the actor who plays him, of course, Barry Allen was never this jokey character. Like, I don't know why both the CW and the movie keep getting the Barry Allen personality wrong. He's not. They keep trying to use Barry Allen, but give him the personality of Wally West. Like, he's not this goofy character. That's Wally West. Barry Allen was always like this hard-nosed detective who's a police scientist. Like, he's a literal like criminal scientist. That's why he and Batman got along so well in the comic books, because they're both hard-nosed detectives. But you don't see that in the movies. Like, instead, in the Zack Snyder movies, they tried to make Barry Allen into this Robin like character to Batman, which it just didn't make sense. And I like Grant Gustin playing the CW Flash, but again, he's not like Barry Allen in the comic books either. Like, most people, if they read the comics, they're going to be completely confused if their only image of the Flash comes from the movies and the TV show. Basically, yeah, it was worth seeing just to watch Keaton whoop people. Keaton had the coolest looking suits and the best gadgets. This is making me want to watch Batman. Damn right. I got the DVD. Like, all my favorite like nerdy films, I've bought the DVD. I got let me see. I got Star Wars, Star Trek, the trilogy of 2, 3, and 4, the Indiana Jones trilogy, just the first three, Ghostbusters 1, Karate Kid 1, Special Edition, Transformers the movie, the 20th anniversary, Batman the 1989 film, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles the 1990 film, the Dark Knight trilogy, the Avengers the first film, the Wolverine, not Wolverine Origins, which sucked, the Wolverine, where it was based on the excuse me, the storyline by Frank Miller, and Captain America Winter Soldier. And I still the movies I still want to get a Spider-Man to the the Toby Spider-Man, and Willow, and something else I can't remember. But yeah. Eric says, yeah, McFarlane's run of Spider-Man was great. He created Venom too. Oh yeah, he did create Venom. Yeah. Eric said I had to make a choice between toy collecting or comic collecting. I choose comics because toy collecting is expensive and take up a lot of space. They do, but it depends on how you see. I buy my stuff like I buy them pre-owned off of eBay, so I'm not paying a lot. You saw my, because I know you saw my toy collectibles before. So I have like both vintage and non-vintage stuff. Got ahead of boys here. Some of this stuff is stuff I still had as a kid. Other stuff I bought as an adult because I wanted it when I was a kid and didn't have the money to get them. um, then like I said, the DVDs and stuff like this. Uh, so this is Todd McFarlane, the McFarlane toys. Like McFarlane has a contract with Warner to make all the DC superheroes. So this was the Batman from comic number 1000 when that was released back in was that 2019 when they finally made DC Comics issue number 1000. They released a Batman for that, and the year prior they made a Superman Action Comics number 1000. I need to get him too. But I have the Batman and I bought this Bat Signal. This actually lights up too, guys. But yeah. So I do both the toy collecting and the comic collecting. But I just know how to get a good deal by going to eBay, or I go to the comic book conventions, and I don't mind haggling. Or here's a good secret: at the comic book conventions, if you want to buy stuff, wait to the end of the day, especially Sunday, the last day. If you wait till like the end of the day, and especially Sunday, which is usually the last day of the comic book convention, you'll usually get the best deals because at that time they just want to get rid of merch. So since they try and get rid of merch, they'll give really good deals on stuff. So that's a good time to get your stuff, whether it's toys or comics. Just the fact they just want to get rid of a lot of merch. They don't have to haul back to their own stores or whatever. They'll usually give you like really good deals when you're at the comic book convention. Raj Jasal says Tim Burton relaunched the superhero niche. His Batman movie was a game changer. Yep, it was. Because remember, after Batman came out, all these little wannabe things came out to try to be like Batman. That's when the Flash TV series came out. Not the CW Flash, the original Flash series came out in 1990. Then they had that Captain America movie, which was like straight to DVD, which is pretty bad. But then they had all these other little They did Dick Tracy because of the success of Batman. They released that Dick Tracy film with Warren Beatty playing him, and people don't give Dick Tracy his due. Like it when it first came out, it was considered a flop, but now I think it's considered sort of a cult classic now with Warren Beatty and Madonna. and it had all the great Italian actors playing mob people in it. Like you had Al Pacino. I think Robert De Niro played one of the characters. You had James Caan playing the character. Um, you yeah. If you guys didn't see Dick Tracy, it came out in 1990. You gotta watch that. That's a cult classic. Like I said, I saw it in the movies. Now I remember people saying it wasn't a good movie, but probably because I was like, was it 1990? I was like 12 at the time, so I liked it. It was good. I liked the way it was colored, the way it was cool. And at the time they had even re-released the Dick Tracy cartoon that came out back in like the 50s. It was like a one of those Fleischer cartoons. So it's really not politically correct. Like they could not re-release that Dick Tracy cartoon today. It would be very controversial, very racist. But they had I remember when the movie came out, they had re-released the old Fleischer cartoon of Dick Tracy. And yeah, so I was all into that stuff at the time. And then, like I said, then there was some other movies they released because of the success of Batman, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Phantom. They made The Phantom because of Batman, which is funny because one of the inspirations for the the Batman character was the Phantom. Like people like the Phantom, Zorro, Crimson Avenger, which I've gave talked about before. Eric says Spawn's first appearance was in Rust issue 1. I also have a signed silver edition of Spider-Man 300 with Stan Lee's and Todd McFarlane sent. Ooh, man, that's. I hope you framed that because if I had that, I would have to frame that. I would get it graded and framed. The only problem is I know sometimes with the signatures, unless the signature is done through the the GC whatever, um like they won't consider the signatures legit because I have some signatures from some comic book artists, but one of the guys who works for the grading authority, whatever they call themselves, I forgot, I'm sorry, but he told me like the signature doesn't count unless it's like it's done through them. So I'm like, damn, that sucks. So I have some bona fide signed comics that's only, I guess, gonna have like value to me because it wasn't done through them. So go figure. So, I don't have any of my books graded. I do not like slabbing them. Okay. Did you watch Bad Boys? No. If you're talking about the new movie, no. Eric says I dislike when they show Nick Cage as Superman fighting that huge spider. Well, that was a shout out to Nick Cage because everyone knows of the story that Nick Cage was supposed to play Superman in a Kevin Smith directed film, but it got canned. But he still got paid for the part. And Nick Cage is actually a huge Superman fan, so he loved. So when they said we wanted to bring you back to replay to replay an alternate version of Superman in the Flash, he loved it. As like I said, he was a huge Superman fan himself. That's why he loved playing the part in that film. It just never got released. They they have a documentary film of the making of this Nick Cage Superman film. Like I said, it was supposed to be directed by Kevin Smith. And I'm gonna have to say, good call on not releasing that because Kevin Smith is not a great filmmaker. I don't. He's overhyped, and everything he touches when it comes to superheroes sucks. Like he's written a few superhero comic books, like Batman and some other stuff, and they're not good. Su- Kevin Smith is way overrated. He's a great comic book fan, but that doesn't mean that he makes good comic book heroes or write good comic book movies. He doesn't. So it was a good call in canon that movie, but that's why they brought Nick Cage to fight that huge spider because it was just basically a shout out to the fact that he played him in that film that never got released. Eric says I'm laying down half asleep. No, you're good. If I can still understand it, I'm just gonna correct it when I say it. Eric says, "What is your favorite Superman comic story, or just favorite Superman story on any media?" Um, I mean, there's still a few I haven't read yet. Like there's the um, I still want to read Kingdom Come and Man of Tomorrow because I heard those are some of the greatest stories. But so far, I'm probably gonna say All Star Superman. I have that. I just don't have it here. I have it in my Philippine home. Like my wife bought it for me. I can't. She either bought it for my birthday or for Christmas, but she bought the book for me. Um, so All Star Superman is my favorite, and this one that I do have here. Because the reason I like it is because they used the Christopher Reeve version of Superman when they drew it. It's called Secret Origins. So I think those are my favorite. So All Star Superman and Secret Origin, but I haven't read The Man of Tomorrow and Kingdom Come yet because I heard those are really good too. Since I haven't seen your collection. Oh, I thought you did in one of my previous streams. I had showed it in my stream, and then I have some pre-recorded long form videos that I've I've shown like my comic book collection. I did a YouTube short showing my stuff, and then I did like a long video where I showed like all my most of my collectibles and books. Not everything, because some of my stuff is in my other house. So I have some of my books and collectibles in my home in Bulacan, Philippines, and also have some stuff in this. So, um, but I did do a video where I released everything out of my comic book container. I went through like all that stuff in a previous video. Yeah, the bat signal lights up. It's um, I don't have the batteries in it just so it doesn't because it'll just kill the battery if you just leave batteries in an electronic device and never use it. Because I've done that with my calculator. I've done that with my lightsaber, and I actually messed up the lightsaber now where it won't light up because I tried to fix it when it started rusting. Because if you leave those batteries in too long, then it'll actually cause it to corrode. So that's why I don't. If I'm not using the device, I don't leave the batteries in it because if you leave it in too long, it'll cause the batteries to corrode and mess up the device. So I messed up my lightsaber like that. So I wanted to make sure I didn't do that with my calculator and my bat signal and my mini recorder. I still have a mini recorder back from college when I used to record my lectures. Actually, that's cool. I like that you have the old school toys too. Yep. Oh, I bought those intentionally. Like some of those I bought at Hallmark. Is Hallmark has a whole section of like vintage toys, so you can get like the Rubik's cube, the old Duncan yo-yos. They got the old like the Hungry Hippo game and the Rock'em Sock'em robots. And I've been meaning to go. It's just there's no. A lot of those Hallmark stores have closed, so there's none near me. The closest to me is in this mall called Columbia Mall in Howard County, which is like uh, about about 35 minutes away driving on the like on the highway. It's about 35 minutes away. It's still in the Baltimore area, but it's like Howard County, sort of between DC and Baltimore, and that's like the closest Hallmark store there is. Because sometimes I prefer just going to the store as opposed to buying it online, just because I like going to the store and seeing everything there. And Hallmark has a really nice vintage, vintage collection of stuff of like toys and stuff from like the 60s, 70s, and 80s. That I think you may have saw the lunchbox. I had the Batman lunchbox. I bought that there. And I remember the lady, it like she was like, "You're just like my." She was like, "You're just like my son." She started smiling. She's like, "He loves." She's like, "He loves buying like these old vintage toys and stuff too." which is funny. She's like, I remind her of her son, which is funny. She's like an old white lady, but she's like, that you remind me of my son. Next is I had the same orange or brown Wolverine figure as a kid. Man, it takes me back. Yeah, because that's my favorite version. I don't like the blue and yellow one. I like the vintage Wolverine. I don't like because that they released it. That was like that's Wolverine version point version one. Then they have Wolverine version two is the one with the yellow and blue. But that on that version, his helmet doesn't come off. On this, his mask is like detachable, and he comes with the katana from the original storyline that Frank Miller wrote when he was trained as a ninja and ended up going off on his own and becoming a Ronin sort of. Um, but yeah, that's the version one is my favorite version. Then they Toy Biz ended up making like multiple versions of him. Then they made the version of him from the Weapon X storyline with the all the wires and stuff sticking out of him and him looking wild going into berserker mode. They made that version. I think that was like version 3. And then they started making a whole bunch of other versions. Alright, so yeah, I love Dick Tracy. That was a very fun movie. I liked how each bad guy had their own exaggerated appearance. Such a fun movie. Yeah, like Flat Top and all those guys. Lips Magnus. Oh, and Dustin Hoffman was in there too. Remember Dustin Hoffman played the guy? Like it was so many great actors in it. I'm surprised that it flopped. Like I said, now it's definitely a cult classic. Like when you look at it now, it's a cult classic. Like people like Al Pacino, James Caan, Dustin Hoffman, Warren Beatty, Madonna, um, and a bunch of other people I can't remember. I think Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro were in it. I think, but I can't remember everyone. But it's an underrated gem. Eric says I have a lot of signed comics, but none of them are verified by CGC. Yeah, so I have like 3 comics, at least no 4. I have like at least 4 comics that's all signed, but none of them are CGC. So like the guy from the CGC told me, he said unless it's done through them, it doesn't count. Like if they grade them, it's not going to be more valuable because they weren't able to verify the signature of the artist. Because I have like um, Ming Na Wen, who signed my Agents of Shield comic book. When I actually saw her at Baltimore Comic Book Convention, like I took a picture with her and had her sign my comic book, and she was nice. She's sweet and she's cute. For 50 years old, she could get it. I'm saying, and like I remember that was the season where they killed her character off, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm gone for the season." And I was like, "But you're like the best part of the show." And, she just smiled, and because she already knew that she was coming back, but she couldn't. She didn't want to spoil it for me, but I knew she was probably coming back. But I think that was like the second or third season when they killed her character, and then she came back at like the end of the season. This was like in 2014 or 2015, something like that. And I knew she was coming back. She was like, "Yeah." And she was, she put her arm around me. She was a small lady. She was cute. She could get it. But she signed my comic book. I had some artists sign my Batman wedding comic book. And they weren't the artists who did the comic book. They were just big artists who were part of, DC. And I was like, "Would you mind signing this?" He was like, "No, not at all." He said, "Sure." And they did it for free because this was at the comic convention in Manila, and a lot of stuff they were doing at the Manila comic book convention, they were doing for free. They made you pay for here. Like you could see, like when what's that black superhero called? Luke Cage. When Luke Cage and the other show came out at the time, they were at the Manila comic book convention. Yeah, they were all the way in the Philippines, Manila guys. So they were signing stuff for free. But back here, if you went to see them like at the San Diego convention, the New York convention, or the Baltimore convention, you had to pay to actually greet them. But you can greet and meet them for free at the one at Manila, because I think all that stuff was already paid for. And like the whole thing was hosted by Netflix at the time, so that's why it was probably free, because Netflix had actually paid. I think was the uh, the, the main people who did the Manila comic book convention at the time. So, and that was the last one they had, by the way, too. That was in 2018. They've had other conventions in in Manila, but not by that. But they haven't had the Manila Comic Con anymore. So Nick Cage owns a complete copy of Action Comics #1. He's a true fan. I remember you telling me. So that book is not cheap. Yeah, the depending on where you got it off in the auction, it could have been as much as like $2 million. Eric says Kevin Smith is a weirdo. I'm not a fan of that guy. So I like him as a fan, but I don't like the stuff he makes. His movies and the book and his comic books aren't good. They just aren't. He is kind of weird. Eric says Kingdom Come is really good. The art is beautiful and the story is relevant. Yeah, because it's the Alex Ross artwork. Alex Ross makes some good stuff. Thomas Carr says hardly human. Eric says Man of Tomorrow is very good. Yeah, so those two on my list, Man of Tomorrow and Kingdom Come. Eric says my current favorite, aside from John Byrne's run of Man of Steel 1 through 6, is Superman Rebirth. It focuses on Superman teaching John Kent how to control his powers. Okay. Um, I've read something with the Rebirth storyline, but I don't have it here. I don't think I've kept it. It says a superhero version of Andy Griffith show. I love it. So the art is amazing too. Guys, I don't when you guys come here and say English or Spanish, I really don't know what you're talking about. I don't know if that's an inside joke or I really don't get it. So I can't answer that question because I don't know what you're talking about. And if you guys are talking about Don Cheadle and all this other stuff, I'm not going to answer you. Like anything that's not relevant to the conversation, I'm simply just not going to answer you. So anyway, I'm about to leave off. I'm going to go eat, guys. And the temperature's going down where I can go outside and do an evening run without it being so hot. It's still 84 degrees out though. Still pretty hot. Motivation to get back up early in the morning, 4:30, and do my run at 5 or earlier. But Eric, what are they talking about when they keep saying English or Spanish? I really don't get that. Like, I don't know what they're talking about because like almost every other stream, someone says that. I'm not getting if they're talking about what we're talking about or some sort of inside joke. I don't get it. I ran out of water. Yeah. Yeah, it's just weird. Like, there's too many trolls. I'm gonna just time the person out because they seem retarded. But in any case, I'm about to go because I'm hungry. I'm gonna eat, and then by the time I eat, I should be. Hopefully, it would drop to under 84 degrees. It's still pretty hot. Yeah, a lot of them are the same people because once I ban them under their username, then they'll just literally create another username. Like that's what I'm saying. You got to be a mentally ill person that you have nothing better to do than troll. And then when you get banned, then you create a whole new username just so you can come back and keep trolling. Like to me, that's a clear indication that they're an incel. Like they have nothing else better to do in their lives than to troll people. And then when people ban them, then they change their username so they can come back trolling. So you're right. Matter of fact, I'm gonna just you guys Sorry. Yeah, so it timed out, so uh I mean the connection lost for a few seconds. But I'm about to end this anyway. Eric says, yeah, man, people are toxic on the net. There was a comic book meetup for this new publisher called the Ripperverse. Mm. The idiot's asking me, am I black? And you're looking at my very face. Like retarded. Like just straight up. Um Pot Sheen on the road says, Jesus, I was just on a live channel a minute ago and the abuse some people online gave the person. Yeah, I go through the same thing, Pot Sheen. By the way, welcome to the channel. Again, it has to be a mental health issue because, like I was discussing with my friend. By the way, my friend was just on the stream earlier, by the way. Uh, on here, he calls himself OB, OBQ Kenobi. But um, yeah, we were discussing it yesterday. He was like, it got to be something mentally wrong with someone who has nothing else better to do than to go trolling people. And I told him, I was like, well, maybe most of them are just children. And he was like, nah. He said, even if they're minors, he said they still got to be like retarded because like he said, what child doesn't have something else better to do than to go online and just troll people? So I agree. Like whether they're minors or whether they're adults living in the basement with a neck beard, you know, beating off to Pornhub, is like it gotta be something wrong with you to think that it's okay to come onto a live stream and just abuse the content creator. So and then and then or people just come and just ask completely off the wall questions. So yeah, I have to agree with you. And I even said, I was like, to kind of derail it a little bit, I was saying if people want to ask random questions or leave random comments, leave a cash app first and I'll actually acknowledge them. But of course that's too much for them to do, which is actually the point that I make, is that I knew that they won't actually put their money where their mouth is. But anyway, guys, I'm going to go. Appreciate the conversation. If you want to check out this from the beginning, as soon as it's uploaded, you can watch it in its entirety from the beginning or catch any part in between. Um, but um, at least nominally, this was supposed to be about Superman Day. Then it just ended up talking about all sorts of superheroes. But Superman Day was on June 12th, which was earlier last week, but I forgot because it was no mention of it. I didn't even see a mention of it on the Facebook page itself, which was weird. Like you would think at least the Facebook page would acknowledge Superman Day, but Superman Day isn't as big as Batman Day. There's a Spider-Man Day too, but again, the only one I actually really see them advertising or promoting is usually Batman Day, which luckily is right around my birthday every year. So sometimes Batman Day falls exactly on my birthday, which is usually right around the time that Baltimore has its comic book convention. So I'll go to the comic book convention with a little bit of birthday money, and spend buy. That's usually when I'll buy like a bunch of like collectibles and comics or get some new signed comic books. It's usually on at the Baltimore Comic Book Convention. Thanks, Eric. I will. So, all right, guys, take it easy. Again, if you want to check this out in the beginning, I'm gonna upload it, and you guys can see it from the beginning. Eric says I'm gonna go into my first comic convention this year in Ontario. Oh, that's what's up. Is it gonna be in Toronto? Because I know Toronto has like a comic book convention. I don't know what it's called, but it's like, usually around this time, like usually the first comic book convention starts with the one in San Diego, since that's the first and the biggest, and then from then on, like everyone else does theirs. Like the New York comic, I think actually the New York comic convention has gotten bigger than the one in San Diego, just because I think it's easier for more people to get to the one in New York than the one in San Diego. So in the last few years, the New York comic book convention has become bigger than the one in San Diego. But San Diego is still considered the main one, where they release all the new movie trailers to come out next year. So usually all the big movie trailers will be released during the San Diego Comic Con. But the New York Comic Con is actually bigger. Sort of like the difference between like Walt Disney World and Walt Disneyland. Like Disneyland was the first one and like the main one, but Walt Disney World became the bigger of the two amusement parks. Eric is going to meet a few friends and see Kenneth Rockerford. Okay. In Ontario, Canada. So I thought it was going. So when you said Ontario, I just meant Ontario, the province itself. My bad. But all right, I'll let you guys go. Appreciate it. And you know, if you guys want to learn some more about Superman, hey, um, the movies, the comic books, the TV shows, even Netflix has like Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. Even though that's a really nerfed version of Superman, at least he still has his like personality. Paching says, cheers and just subscribe. Catch you again. Thanks, Paching. Um, be back tomorrow. Maybe not same bat time, but definitely same bat channel. All right, guys.